This is Naoki Yoshida,
This is Fern Hall.
and you are listening to Aetheryte Radio.
Aetheryte Radio.
Here we go!
All right, hello and welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm Fusion X. Joining me today, we've got a full house. We've got Zen, we've got Aldino, and we've got Rook.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
What up?
All right, so today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the Tales from the Shadows story.
Everything good over there, Zen?
I was like, my camera's really high. I'll adjust my chair.
As Zen goes down like the mini like Tower of Terror, right? Just
Yep.
Sudden plummet.
That's what happened.
we're going to talk about the Tales from the Shadows short stories that they've been releasing throughout the last 4 weeks. But first, so Final Fantasy XVI was announced.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
a thing.
Yeah, just like small news that no one really cares about.
Yeah, it's been weird because it's been one of those things. People have said, oh, it was supposed to be shown off during like the first PlayStation 5 showcase that they did, and it got pulled last minute. That's been what I've been hearing. They're like, it's gonna be at this one unless it gets pulled last minute again.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally got to see it. And so not only is Final Fantasy 16 a thing that is on the way, but our boy Yoshida is the producer on it.
Yeah.
So hype. So
Only
hype.
producer, not director.
Only
not,
producer.
Not two pairs of shoes this time, just one.
Yeah. So he's producing. Hiroshi Takai is directing, who has also been involved in many games, 14 included. What did you guys think of it? Just like initial.
Oh boy, I have so many thoughts. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been hoping, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in the future, but like I've been hoping that we would get another fantasy Final Fantasy. Like
Yes.
one that really leans more into the
Yes.
fantasy realm, because like 15 had fun stuff, even though it's not my favorite, and I got spoiled and didn't finish it because I did not care for the ending. The modern setting was something in it that like I thought was fun on one hand, but I also personally don't love that much. I was like, I don't want to be at a gas station. I want to be in a fantasy city. Like, please. So I've been really, really hoping that we would get the next one that would be like fantasy twist. And I love it. And it is. And like that kind of medieval feeling, the like fantasy feeling, all of that I adored. I thought it was super cool. The characters seem really interesting. I think the setting is really cool, and there's a lot of theories going around right now that it may or may not be 14
There's
adjacent.
so many theories. It's
Which I am really
insane.
interested in, because I mean, I can see it. Like, there's definitely things there that I think could be. I think my only complaint, because everything else looked amazing, the graphics, the story, all the stuff was really good. The music, holy cow. My only complaint was that we didn't really get to see a very cool female character, and I'm like, just give me like one cool lady in the cast.
we got Ishgardian Yotsuyu.
Yeah. But it was like a little brief thing, and
It
it doesn't
was.
seem like they're one of the main characters.
She seems
so-
like a stereotype.
I don't know.
As well.
Well, yes, but it feels like she could very well be one of the more main
She could be.
characters.
we just didn't get much of a sense of her, I guess.
Yeah,
Except
yeah,
for the step on the energy, which was there.
Yeah, she had a lot of step on.
Yes,
me.
it was.
I
Walking
mean,
around with
not
that
wrong.
freaking pipe.
Yeah.
yeah.
She had this like, no, we're not gonna help you too. Like the dialogue around it was them asking for help, or at least it was cut to sound like they were asking her for help, and she's like, nah, you're on your own. Bye.
Now I'm good. See ya.
that whole little bit of dialogue. All I could think about was Game of Thrones.
Yep.
When they're
The war in the
sitting
north.
there in the north, and they're like, so hey, you all said you were gonna help. Nah, I don't know about that.
Pass for now.
There's so many
Yeah.
words that I want to know what they mean. Like, they said the Shiva dominant. We're here to kill the Shiva dominant and only the dominant.
Right, and so I think my thought is that's probably the impression I get, right? Because we see it a little bit later in the trailer with Joshua and Phoenix, is that they're going the Ysayle route for icons, which are primals, espers, whatever you want to call them. They're icons in this one. They're I think that's only the second time they've reused that. or the first time they
I-
reused it technically, because it was first used in 14.
I don't remember it being a word.
What's her face? Tara.
Tara, yeah. Does she say icon? I think she does for like.
Oh, you were
Magma.
talking about the word. I just
The word.
was thinking of people that
No.
become the
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
The word, yeah. But yeah, they're definitely going like the Ysael route. Where like, hey, I'm gonna turn into the thing, which is, I mean, there's so many similarities with 14.
That body just shrouded in fire bothered me.
Yeah.
It really did.
It's interesting when you see the kind of like transparent-y fire guy. My first thought was like, is this game directed by Hideo Kojima? Like it reminded me of like the old like Metal Gear Solid stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But so I think the dominant is probably the person who can channel the icon. And then we see Joshua turn into Phoenix, and then the one guy's like, how are there two fire icons? That's weird. And Ifrit shows up, he's like, hey, this is my turf, and it looks like he maybe kills Joshua.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a
Definitely
time
kills
lapse, and maybe the main character has Phoenix type Devil May Cry power. Who knows,
It's
man.
interesting. You know,
I heard-
being a summoner,
Yeah.
I kind of went frame by frame every time there was a primal or
Did you?
background. Maybe
That's
yes.
fair. Yeah.
And yeah, it's exactly like Devil May Cry in that like the primals seem to be, or icons. Sorry, I'm gonna use their words. It's not 14. They seem to be able to be channeled by people who are related to the dominant or something. Like, because the main character or whoever that was, the younger one was doing Phoenix, but the older one had like Titan punches and like, Phoenix wings, and I think I saw like a Leviathan or at least a water something. And I'm like, give me
Interesting.
all of that. I want all of that.
Yeah. Well, the other kind of mention we had too was the mention of mother crystals and how
Yes.
it sounds like there's some kind of blight plaguing the world, and they're trying to secure mother crystals in order to survive that. So like, I mean, that could be, who knows, right? I mean, my first thought is like, oh, there's a blight and they need mother crystals to survive. I'm like, so that's like Crystal Chronicles. It's like, if our town doesn't have the crystal, we're gonna be in trouble.
It did feel like that. It made me wonder about like if we're fishing for 14 connections, right? I was like, oh, are these like the like Heidelin's crystals that can be found or acquired and the power wielded, or again we don't know. I mean, Ifrit looks a lot like 14 Ifrit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
such a thing in so many Final Fantasies, though, right? Like,
yeah, the
there's
idea
a
of like,
crystal in a place. We must go there.
and it's a fire crystal, it's a water crystal. So maybe those are tied to the icon. There's a million possibilities. I think it looks cool. The thing I think that really stood out to me was, and I think it's one of those like, I'm on the fence with it, right? A lot of the characters that we saw in the trailer are very, I don't want to say boring, but they look they're very like they're just like they're very like plainclothes, kind of like there's not a lot of like crazy costuming. It's just like they're like kind of everyday people.
Subdued, maybe.
But it
I don't
also
mind it so
also
much.
really reminds me of when they re-released Final Fantasy III. The styling of everything. Like if you had shown me the first like 30 seconds of that trailer and we're like, hey, it's like a something about like a 3 spin-off or something, I'd be like, yeah, I would buy that. It looks just like it. But I think, I mean, between that, the mother crystals, icons, they're really pulling from every aspect of the series for this. And then also because, Yoshida's gonna Yoshida, he's like, yeah, so those mother crystals, nuh-uh, they ain't gonna be, dictating our stuff going forward or whatever. So I'm like, okay, like, what's this? Like, okay. So I think it looks really interesting. I think one of the battle guys from Devil May Cry is actually working on this title.
Yep. Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma, which
It's so crazy.
It is. It's insane. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I wasn't really sure where we would go with the next game. I loved the modern setting, like that modern fantasy. I thought that was really cool. But I also like that they're kind of going back a little bit, right? Doing like that kind of medieval-ish And this is violent too. Like, this isn't like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a fantasy, we're gonna go around and it's gonna be fun. It's like,
Did I
hey,
mention the body swathed in fire?
it's like, hey, I'm gonna stab this dude right in front of you and you're gonna get covered in blood. And hey, Titan just killed a dude, look at him explode. Like, it's crazy. It's
I think this
so
is our
crazy.
first M-rated Final Fantasy, and I am all about
You
that.
think so?
I think so.
You think they would go for an M rating?
I don't see how you
Did
don't
you
get
see the
M.
child in blood? Like,
I
Yeah,
mean,
like that. I mean, maybe they're skirting, but like that
Yeah.
seems like M to me. Like
I
I've
wonder
seen
what
things
kind of
M-rated from
discussion
less.
they have right internally about that. Like,
Yeah.
that's
I mean-
gotta be. Yeah.
Final Fantasy has always been a series that's very dark. And I
Mhm.
mean, and it's deceptively dark, right? Because I think a lot of times the style of the world is so charming and cute that you don't really realize the darkness until you start describing things. I mean, I've just been playing through the Final Fantasy VII Remake way after everybody else because I've been going at my own pace, doing my own thing. And I have been reminded, because I hadn't played it since I was a kid, of just like, oh
Mm.
my God, this is a brutal one. Like, some of the stuff that happens and some of the things and like the deaths, like, it was
you like pancake people?
oh my gosh, yes, it was
Mhm.
terrible. And it's interesting because I think we've seen a shift with things like Game of Thrones, which we know, like, at least in 14, we've had a lot of, sort of references to Game of Thrones even cheekily kind of show up.
I
in
mean,
things.
Heaven's Word. Like, the team was like, hey, Game of Thrones, let's make that.
Yes, like A Song of Ice and Fire and other fantasy that I think is really big in media right now could easily be an influence on this, but so could just the evolving graphics. I mean, the fact now that we have such a realistic ability to kind of, create such realistic graphics could also have made them kind of want to go like, hey, well, why don't we take advantage of that and make this a world that is, like you were saying, a little more subdued, that feels a little bit more like it is like medieval fantasy, maybe really intense, but then like also have those Final Fantasy elements in it, which I think will be neat to see, even though I do miss the like flamboyant, ridiculous designs because they're so iconic. But
I mean, and it's possible we still might get a character or two, right? That's a little off the wall, and I think that wouldn't surprise me to have at least like one comic relief character, right?
That's exactly what I was gonna say though. Like, I feel like a lot of the new age, here's 1,000 belts and 15 zippers and like ash shorts that are bright yellow and a weird hat with like a wing off of it, and all of that stuff comes with a certain kind of Final Fantasy, and this one seems to be venturing away from that, which I'm excited for.
It's
not
more
that
of
I hate the crazy
yeah.
designs. I'm just like, I'm ready for the story that comes along with a more serious setting.
What do you?
I said it, and I was.
You do,
joking.
yeah. You hate the crazy designs. I don't
I said
know.
that I was
I
joking.
like them. Oh, okay.
But I said that the bad man can't hurt us anymore with the zippers and the power of friendship. We finally can have a mature Final
The power
Fantasy.
of friendship.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
so
the
done with
power
that.
of friendship, Al.
I
You
can't.
know,
Can we
I
have a
can't.
power of friendship bathed in blood though? Like,
It's just
our
like-
friendship lived, but we are effed up, guys.
our friendship was
JRPGs
forged in fire and the blood of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just hate when JRPGs go back to those tropes. Like
Yeah.
I want,
There is
I
a
want
lot of
something new. Right?
The
Yeah.
power
I
of
want that.
love, the power of friendship.
It's hard, right? Because it's like the unsolvable problem, right? You want something new, but you want it to be the same as XYZ. Like, there's no happy medium. What do you all think of the combat? Because it's not turn based. It's kind of an evolution of what we've seen with
Well,
15 and 7 remake.
My
Mhm.
face is because I think they're still perfecting that. Because here's the thing, and I think this is the biggest question for me coming out of the trailer. I did not necessarily get the sense that this was a group, like you have your adventuring party kind of game. It felt more like Devil May Cry, where you've got like the person and you're doing all this ridiculous stuff like with your character. And I think for me, I've always loved the ensemble casts of 14, or not 14, but Final Fantasy as a franchise. I love ensemble casts. I mean, it's partly why I think 10 and so many of their games are so iconic, because you have this cast of characters that everybody can kind of find something to be invested in and to really love. But this one feels so far very much more lone wolf, which I think on one hand would work really great with the new style of combat that they've been introducing. And I wasn't a huge fan of 15's. I like the 7 remakes combat more. I really like that the characters have different things that they do and that you can kind of play style differently with each of them. But the big issue for me coming off of that is that, like, if this does end up being an ensemble game, I really hope they still do something where you can delineate roles for the different characters, because it's kind of tough in the 7 remake. Like, if I have a ranged healer like Aerith that I've bulked up to do ranged casting, but then I switch to her and I put her like white mage ley lines down and I try to cast on her for any period of time, every single enemy in the vicinity comes over to me because the aggro jumps to the player character. And even if you have some of those aggro materia or things to like balance it out, it's still not a really good surefire way to like control the roles on the field. And that's something that I think turn-based combat did great, because you could have characters who really excelled in something plan out exactly how it was going to happen and then use that against an enemy for various tactics and to like, you know, combat various things. So if they keep the more action-oriented combat, which I'm sure that they will, and we do have an ensemble cast, I hope that they still find ways for you to be able to like spec characters and play them differently and have aggro be a little bit more wrangled, because I liked the 7 combat, but I do think there's still a little bit more they can do to polish it.
Yeah,
Didn't
I mean,
7
definitely.
have the option to have like the action or the turn-based?
But the turn
I didn't play.
options
I haven't
suck.
played 7 at
it
all.
was kind of an odd like
No?
middle ground where stuff could kind of slow down.
You
I
can change- you
never
can change it. You can
played
make
it
completely
personally.
turn-based.
You
But
so,
there is-
but what I heard from everybody is that like it's not really a full-fledged combat. Like
No.
if you do more of the
Oh, okay.
turn-based, it's almost like you're doing like, this is gonna sound so snotty, but I really don't mean it that way. It's like you're doing more of like a story playthrough or like an easy
I mean,
casual run.
You have to
Like-
do it on the lowest difficulty. You cannot do turn-based on any difficulty
Oh.
other than lowest.
Huh.
So, like, it's the easy mode.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. I just hope I hope they go more of a Mass Effect or Dragon Age, like real-time combat. You can stop it, tell your companion to execute this action, then go back, you know.
Yeah, it
So I
really
didn't,
it really
read
depends on if
anything.
we have
Mhm.
party members. I think that's going to dictate a lot
Yeah.
of what can be done.
Yeah.
I didn't read anything about it, but a couple of friends told me that they're gearing it up to be co-op. So
That's the first I've heard of that.
yeah, that's
I have not heard that
that's
either.
what I heard.
Mm.
I don't know where that information came from, but wouldn't that be
Mm.
pretty
That would
cool?
be cool. I mean, I would honestly be down. Okay, here's the thing. As long as you could still play it by yourself, like, I think
Yeah.
that'd be cool. But,
Mhm.
I mean, even Fusion and I were trying out Crystal Chronicles together, and I was like, man, I really would love to have a true Final Fantasy game that's co-op, but the new release had its issues.
Yeah.
And and so I would really love to have the capability to do that, and especially if that meant that we had some leeway, like in Crystal Chronicles, to make the protagonist what we want, you know, like to change the gender and, you know, do something like that, because we haven't really seen a lot of that in Final Fantasy games, and I think it would be really neat if you could then like put together a party and go and have your own story.
That guy looks
know.
very Warrior of Light-esque.
Oh. He
Very
Very
default,
gambit.
if you will.
Mhm.
Yeah, I loved all those kind of comparisons. Like, oh, this kind of looks like this, and this kind of sounds like that. And I'm like, well, it is made by the same division as
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with 15, I mean, it wasn't at launch, but we did end up getting the ability to play as the other characters in 15.
Yeah.
Which they all kind of had a little something different, right? But of course, when Noctis could just fly around and hit whatever, like it's not a big deal. Yeah, and then 7 kind of evolved on that a little bit, and so I'm sure 16 will probably do the same, or they'll just full on like DMC it. I don't know. You know, I think a lot of that'll depend on if we have any other kind of party members, and if we don't. I agree that it's nice to have those characters, but it's also possible too that we could have those characters show up in other ways, just not with us the whole time, right? But it is something different, and I don't want to like hate on them for that yet, right? We haven't played it yet, so if they want to try something different, by all means, try something different. This is the guy that essentially saved Final Fantasy as a franchise, right? So I have faith that 16 will at least be a fun game.
What do you think about them just stealing Game of Thrones' launch completely and doing viewpoint characters? Like, the first part was the younger
I'd be alright
guy,
with that.
you know, like, and they go through this story and eventually they get together. I would love something like that.
Yeah, it's
that'd be
interesting because we're
amazing.
not quite sure what's happening yet.
Yeah.
Because is it a different guy? Is it
right?
somebody
The
else?
The thing that drives me nuts about reading books like that is you always
Mhm.
have a favorite.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah.
you eventually get to the chapter of that character you don't give a crap about, and you're like, all right, all right, all right, all right. Yes, next chapter.
But
Yeah,
sometimes though, those characters really surprise you. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I do love, and one of the reasons that I love the actual books, A Song of Ice and Fire, because like Cersei, for example, despicable woman, but some of her chapters were some of my absolute favorites in the book, or like Littlefinger, or like it's so interesting to get these insights into people in a way that you don't necessarily get to when you're just like looking at their character, or maybe you miss
Mhm.
their side quests, or maybe, you know, not that I ever would because I complete every side quest,
Right.
but like it's one of those things where I think it does kind of force you to play those roles and get to know those characters, and can sometimes build a bigger tapestry overall. So like I would be super down for that. I think it would be neat. I do get the sense that it's the same guy. Like
Yeah,
that's how
same.
I felt by the end of the trailer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not totally sure yet how it all comes together, because we really didn't get much more of a sense of just like, yeah, all the players that I think could be a role in
Mhm.
this, beyond sort of
Mhm.
him and the kid and a few other
Yeah.
little glimpses.
What do the
Yeah.
tattoos mean?
I mean,
you
there's
know?
there's
Yeah.
there's two
That's how you
ways that
keep your Akon smashed into your face.
there you go.
Just
Yeah, I
chills
mean
there.
the two ways I kind of read it is okay,
He's
this guy's
junctioned.
protecting Joshua. Joshua is somehow the Phoenix. Ifrit kills him, and then there's a time skip, and he's gonna go after like the Ifrit dominant or something, right?
Mhm.
Or that was the Ifrit dominant, because he says, I'm going to kill you, and then it flashes to that other one. So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm super,
The fact
super
that-
excited.
The fact that we're already like speculating, and so many
Oh,
people
yeah.
are speculating excitedly,
Oh, yeah.
is like very
And-
good news for this, I
Yeah.
think. But
And
you know
the
what?
blog
The one
post.
thing I don't want to see? A car of any kind. The most technology I'd be willing to accept in this particular game would be like a gun. I
Hmm.
don't even want to see an airship. No airships, please.
Whoa.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean,
Airships,
I like the
airships
airships
are. I mean,
sometimes.
I do too. Airships are pretty like
Hmm.
common for Final Fantasy, so they're
Hmm.
mostly acceptable. But I'm just like, stay away. I just want
You
to see
don't-
people riding on chocobos. As
I-
soon as I saw that scene with the chocobos, I was like, oh, I care
Mhm.
about this now. That was a solid scene.
You don't want to see the rocket airship. You want the propeller airship.
Yes.
Yeah,
like that
I-
steampunky
I
fantasy.
would love to see like diet
Steampunky fantasy.
steampunk.
Yes, I'll do that.
Give me, maybe not full steampunk though. I'd be down for that too. I think that'd be cool. I love the aesthetic of it, but little light steampunk in my medieval setting, and I
Balloon.
think
Mhm.
It physically goes ploop 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 as the propeller goes around. It's fine.
I am
exactly.
so excited about the style of the world.
Yes.
And I did okay. Now this, I mean, we don't have to get into this too much, but I did see a compelling argument that this could be one of the calamities, and that it could
Mm.
be the calamity of fire, which I was like, ooh,
Right.
where like
There
all
has
these boring
been
medieval churches kind of did like a
Yeah.
thing against each other, and I was like, I can see something like that.
there's been a lot of talk. I mean, and again, right, because of the similarities, because it's the same, business division working on this. There's a lot of people theorizing if this could maybe be like one of the shards.
Mhm.
We actually ran a poll on Twitter because there's a lot of people talking about it. 52.8% of people said yes, they thought that it could take place on a shard of 14.
52% of people are optimists.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would do that. I
Well,
can't.
I don't know though, because here's the thing. We don't really have precedent for it. So, I mean, like, yes, I think it could totally be its own separate thing, 110%. But the fact that Yoshida is working on it, like, one, he said for a long time that he's wanted to do a single player game. And I mean, obviously, he's an incredible,
Yeah.
just everything. So, like, absolutely, it makes sense to put him on something like this, because I think he's going to do a great job. But like some of the terminology, some of the things that we got in it, some of the similarities, some of the, all of those things paired with the fact that Yoshida is producing it, like, does kind of make me go, well, you know what? Shadowbringers and Final Fantasy XIV, it's a game that's been praised, an MMO that's been praised in a way for its narrative that is kind of unparalleled in like the MMO genre. And people have said it really is something that is on par with a single player game. So to me, it's not actually that bad of like a business decision to be like, we will make a game that is like set in this because the story is so good. And it will then encourage more people to go play 14
Right.
and like vice versa.
Well, and I think the way they're doing that is not so much the setting, but it's the imagery and the language.
Sure.
Right. I think that, the use of icon, the similarity in character design for at least the main character.
When you say there's no precedence, do you mean for a game to be attached to an MMO or just one game to be attached to another?
I meant like in the Final Fantasy franchise, we haven't seen like with 11, for example, a new numbered Final Fantasy single player come out that was based on 11's world, as far as I know, right?
Okay.
Like, so it's
there
not
have
like
there have been connections. So like for example, have you beaten 7 Remake?
no,
Rook?
I'm 3/4 of the way through right now.
Okay. Without giving too much away, there is a picture in the game talking about a certain corporation that has a certain character from 10-2 on it.
Yes. Well, 10.
So
that's exactly the thing I was going to say. But that's why I was asking if she meant game to game or game to MMO, because game to MMO is
or same universe to other numbered, like it's
there
are
there's a lot of, I would say, references.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily, other than like 10-2 direct sequel or like direct sequels or DLC, we don't really have like a precedent, especially as just specifically the MMOs, right? Of the MMO then being released as like a single player game down the road, or like the worlds being tied in a way, as in not just like a little homage, but like straight up canonically, these are the same, like, so it wouldn't be something that I think like we would
it's a secret they can't
expect.
tell us yet.
Yeah. I mean, we
maybe
the closest we've gotten to that would have been Final Fantasy Grandmasters on mobile, right? Which was like an 11 spin-off thing, and it was up for like 2 years, never localized, and then they killed it.
I mean, I guess you could say 12 and Tactics are like same universe.
Well, 12 Tactics Advanced Vagrant Story, which oddly enough has some strong maybes with this trailer with Joshua being it's not a terribly common name in Final Fantasy here, Joshua. Even more strange that both Joshuas are children and sons of archdukes. Also, please don't take us back to Ivalice.
Okay, I'm sorry. I would love to go back.
No.
12, it was interesting that we were talking about earlier, like the idea of this possibly being yet another break to a new type of mechanical system in this game, right? Because 12 was that, and people hated it. Like, the fact that that was, one of the first big sort of changes away from the very, like, formulaic, what we had come to know of Final Fantasy combats, into then 12, which had the whole gambit system and this like much more almost like programming where you're like literally coming up with all of these if and statements and all these different things to sort of navigate it. I think that innovating in the Final Fantasy franchise is something that has always been present and hasn't always been well received, but over time a lot of times shines as being really incredible. And whether you loved or hated the 12 combat, it was really, really fascinating, and it did kind of make that game iconic in a lot of ways. And I loved it, and I loved the setting. So for me, I'm like, I will take
that's
every
fair.
12, I will take every Tactics, I will take every, like the universe is neat. But at the same time, I think what makes the franchise so interesting is that kind of like Doctor Who, if you didn't care for one, you might find that there's something you super love in another, because each one is kind of like its own fresh start with some nostalgia that you still love.
And to even build on that, we see it a lot in 14. They try a new mechanic or a new, I don't know, anything, diadem. It's terrible, whatever. They move on. They take an aspect of that did work. They put it in the next thing. We have Eureka. They find out what's good from that. Theoretically, that's going in Boja. They do that a lot in 14. We see it very compartmentalized there, but they do that from each game to each game. And I wanted to come back to the possibility of co-op in 16. They put it in 15, and I heard it was kind of but having tried it in 15, perhaps they took that and are able to much better put it into 16.
The online one for we had mentioned that earlier, and I'm like, there was no co-op in 15. It was a completely standalone
separate mode
thing, and it was just
Yeah.
Um,
But having done that experiment and
Yeah.
we know Yoshi P's on it. We see what he does in 14. It could be a much better experience in 16 if that's where
I
they're
mean,
going with it.
I mean, if that's something they played around with, there's absolutely a chance that Yoshida could look at that and say, yeah, maybe we can do something like that, but better.
I mean, I hope better because this is
definitely.
the thing. I love
It has to be better. I mean, if Yoshida is on it, he knows like what's fun and what people are gonna like.
Yeah.
Which is why even if I'm kind of like, okay, like maybe like the characters, the design looks a little bland compared to like 27 belts or something. Like the fact that he's working on it, I think, is first a great business decision. But second, I think it's going to be a really great thing to be able to throw that into marketing because that's going to make people have faith in the project.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about funding from 14 going to 15 or 16?
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, MMO funding goes to the whole company, so
Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously, but like,
Oh, you mean like the revenue
yeah,
from 14 going to 16?
yeah, not funds from 14 being taken away to be thrown at this other game, but
yeah.
they
probably
I
true,
was
though.
again I was told this, I didn't read it, but I heard that they're specifically taking Mog Station funds and throwing them at 16. And I was like, wow, what a really super good time to do that since they just implemented that really great like Oompa Pa German outfit.
I mean, honestly, I don't have any, like, that's fine. It's the money's going to Square Enix. The money's not going directly to Final Fantasy 14, right? Like, they need to make money. The money gets
I would
spent
like the
on
14
other
dev
projects,
team to
like...
get paid more.
That wouldn't.
Well, I
happen
mean,
even if
there's
it was
that,
going to
but
them, though.
you know, there's also that idea too of like, oh, well, if they're getting all this money, they could add an extra dungeon every patch and all this stuff. Yeah, but the team is still the same size, and they can only hire so many, and it's, you know, so like, if I buy a Fantasia and that goes to like 16 to value, I don't care. Like that.
Well, I mean, the same goes in reverse though,
Sure.
right? Like if 16 it brings in a bunch of money, like all of the money for the company goes to the company. So it's like 14 is probably funded by a million other things that Square Enix gets revenue from, right? So for me, it's kind of it's less about like each individual thing and more about, I mean, yes, the total value of the company and what they bring to their products, but I do at the same time kind of understand that, and we talked a little bit about Mog Station in recent episodes, right? But like the idea that on top of a sub, then also purchasing things in something like a Mog Station or paying for stuff like additional retainers and things like that, part of you as like an online player, you think, well, this money goes to them because it is supporting this specific ongoing game. And, you know, if I have to pay extra in addition to my subscription and things like that, then okay, because, you know, they need money to keep the servers going, right? So I get why people would be put off by it, like straight up. I totally understand. But I think that like overall, I mean, like we said, the money is the company's money. So like, you know, any support
Get over it, bro.
but I mean,
Right.
we keep an eye out, and you know, if things start going out of control on the Mog Station, we give feedback. Like that's all you can ever really do.
Right.
Yoshi P, no.
So there were comments. Let's read these real quick. From both Yoshida-san and Takai-san.
Yes.
Yoshida says, Final Fantasy 16. It's so weird because it's like XIV, but now it's like XVI. It's like, wait, is that? Which one is that? Brain, please.
Gonna
work.
trip you up.
Right? Final Fantasy
It doesn't
16
roll
producer.
off the tongue as well.
No.
XVI.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 16 producer. That's right, just producer. Naoki Yoshida here. How did you enjoy the trailer? The exclusive footage comprised of both battles and cutscenes running in real time represents but a fraction of what our team has accomplished since the start of development on this all-new Final Fantasy game. In that span, the team size has grown from a handful of core members to a full-fledged unit that continues to polish and build upon what they've created so far, all to provide players an experience unmatched in terms of story and gameplay. For our next big information reveal, scheduled for 2021, so it's going to be a little bit yet. So no TGS. I'd say in the meantime, I expect everyone to have fun speculating. Oh, don't worry.
Yep.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
That's what I was about to say earlier.
We will speculate. We have a lot in store, not only for Final Fantasy 16, but for Final Fantasy 14 as well. Needless to say, I'll be working hard on both. So, yeah, it's a
Yoshi P, take a nap. I
I see this and I wonder if they ever found, if they're gonna announce like a director for 14 soon, because they've been kind of tossing that idea around that like, hey, maybe we could have somebody else kind of help out Yoshida, or we can just give him, you know, producer on another game on top of producer and director for 14.
I think that the community would be legitimately super sad if they took anything away from him, even if he's still there, like in the fully the same capacity. If somebody else is suddenly given one of his titles and be like, but no, that's our dad.
I mean, he's become so iconic to the rebirth of the game. And I think that is huge because on one hand, I mean, holy cow. I mean, he really did, like a phoenix from the ashes, if we want to tie it here into 16. He really did, I mean, breathe new life into this game in a way that, you know, very realistically was incredibly punishing. I mean, that was just like all of them working their butts off to a degree that is really unbelievable to make this reboot happen with 2.0 and then to make the game the success that it is now. But I mean, we are in a position right now where I think the team that is around him, because he is so savvy about all of this, is so good. It's a well-oiled machine. I mean, like, holy cow, even just like Ishikawa stepping up as this lead writer here. I mean, like, we don't have to worry about the trickle-down effect, I think, being like, now everything falls apart because Yoshida-san is working on something else. Like, he is the backbone of this game, but he has an amazing team around him. And I'm sure it has felt really limiting to be so iconic when also you want to, like, continue doing new things, right? Like, you want to bring a new legacy. You want to keep expanding what you can do. So I think we just have to all just, like, see what happens. I'm really excited because of it, but I mean, I think that it would be tough for the community to accept, like, oh, they can never replace him completely, because I would die inside, and I think so many other people would too. But I mean, even just giving him a little bit more breathing room probably
for like an
wouldn't be
expansion.
bad. For like an expansion or like
let the Yoshi P leave the nest and take it.
It's also, I think, worth noting too. At the beginning of the trailer, we do have a logo for Creative Business Unit 3. And there is a phoenix on there. I just wow.
See, to me, that is a huge flex. Like that to me makes it seem like they're pushing Yoshida as the new Sakaguchi, you know, because we lost Sakaguchi, and let's just say the games after that were not as good. Let's just say that. Just be fair to them. They're not as good. I would love it. I would absolutely love it if Yoshi P became the new Sakaguchi, and he is bouncing around these games, but he, you know, retains kind of some sort of ownership, at least like executive producer on 14. That would be fine, I think. As long as he doesn't.
I think, you know, I mean, keep in mind too, I mean, he's the head of this what do they call it now, the business unit 3. It used to be something else, I feel like.
Creative
business division, yeah. They renamed him and restructured him a couple years ago. Yeah, like he's always whatever Square's put out. I mean, he's an executive at the company. He's going to be attached. He's on the Final Fantasy
council
board or committee or council, whatever they called it.
So they throw on their cultist hoods and sit around a round table with some magic runes in the middle.
He already has final say, like, or at least one whatever, however many people are on the council. He's a fraction of the final say on everything Final Fantasy already. So like, I don't know how much more work he even could get, right?
Yeah. Let's move on to the comment from Hiroshi Takai. For those not familiar, he's been with the company since FF5.
Yeah.
Wow.
He directed The Last Remnant. He worked on 11. He worked on 14. He's been on some of like the FanFest dev panels for 14.
That is so long. That is a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So the comment from Takai-san says, when Final Fantasy 1 was released, I was just another player, a young student with big dreams. By the time 5 was in the works, I'd earned myself a seat at the developer's table, albeit at the very end. From there, I moved online, leaving my mark on both Final Fantasy 11 and 15, and now 16. From the establishment of an all-new development environment to learning the ins and outs of the PS5, the team and I have taken on countless challenges during our journey to bring you the 16th chapter in the storied Final Fantasy franchise. And though we're pouring our hearts and souls into the project each and every day, it may still take some time before we can get it into your hands. However, I promise it'll be worth the wait. I can't imagine, like, the fact, I mean, I think it's going to be evident too. I mean, they've worked together already for so long. I think it's such a great pairing. And I mean, for so long, even before, like right when like 2.0 launched, everybody was talking about like, man, what if like they gave an offline main series entry to like the people that are working on the online games? This is it. This is that game. And so I'm super pumped. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Me too. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I think no matter what, it's going to be something unique and something exciting. And whether or not it ends up being your favorite, I mean, like we were saying, there's always something to try in the series. But I think this could be a really big thing to see how those stories translate to the single player Final Fantasies, and the people that have had such a huge hand in them can leave their own mark on the franchise in another way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add that it's not just us, like, 14 players and, North America or any of that. Like, a lot of comments on, like, Japanese bulletin boards after this was announced was like, oh, good, it's Yoshida. He's the sage of Final Fantasy. It can't go wrong. Like, literally. Like, it's not just us, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone is like, oh, my goodness, it's Yoshi P. Like, it's going to be great. I can't wait.
One thought too that I wanted to bring up. A lot of people have been saying that the voice in the trailer is actually the Japanese actor for Graha.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So I want to make this observation, right? And
Okay.
feel free to lend your thoughts too. Right now, voice work is usually done pretty early for a game.
Mm-hmm.
But also pandemic, quarantines, etc. They had access to these voice actors right for the patch. Maybe they said, hey, could you also read a few lines for this? Do you think that these are the finalized voices, or do you think that they're still working on that?
Well, I mean, sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I don't think it's final because look at 7 Remake. Like, those were not final. Those are not the same voices that we got in the end. Like, there was like almost a very public change for like Barrett, I remember. So like I think that they just got anyone.
Yeah, I mean,
think.
even the Shadowbringers 14 trailer, right? We had the Gremlin voice, and we never
Yeah.
that character doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I again, I don't think that it is ridiculous to say, hey, there are
Yeah.
some things that maybe could be a basis for possibly having something that is tied into the 14 verse. I don't think that it's foolish to see those, because there are so many of them that
Yeah.
hey, look, if they really are doing something there, I mean, that is very clearly the sign, But otherwise, I do agree in that, like, there's so many voice actors that are reused for so many different things, and they have a vast repertoire. And I mean, having the setup and stuff to do that recording right now, even, that's a whole other thing, having accessibility with it. And because we're so far off from the game, right? They're going to give us more
Yeah.
information in 2021. But at least myself and other people that I've been talking to, nobody's really expecting this game to hit until 2022 or beyond, right? Like,
Right.
we don't know when it's actually going to be released. So it's so early at this point that I don't think we can say, yes, for sure, this is a thing and we all need to be aware of it and it's definitely proof, or it's, we don't know on that. It's just probably a dramatic voice actor with somebody that does good work,
Which is both good and bad. Like, more opportunities for more people. I'm sure there are lots of people who are like, Graha, heck yeah, I'm in. I don't care. Graha's there. I'm there too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, it's either way, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I like him, but I'm sure anybody else might do just as good a job.
Mm-hmm.
I do see in the chat Terrell saying, are we still expecting the next 14 expansion in 2020?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. I think so.
Maybe.
Just a
the way
smidge
that
later, right?
Yeah,
We're only like
the
3 to 5 months behind.
at this point we could, I think they might time it with just the anniversary date.
Sure. August.
Potentially, or a little before that.
I think
Mhm.
that's 2 or 3 months
Yeah,
after.
that might be a
so
little
it's
late.
Totally possible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the way that I look at development for 14 now is that everything just shifted back 2 months. So what would have been a fan fest in November, which was canceled, is probably going to be some kind of online broadcast late December, early January, and that's our first
Now that you bring that up,
view of the expansion coming up.
because we are approaching October, and I only recently did this. If you have not canceled your October hotel room in California, San Diego, cancel it. remember to cancel it. You have
Was
what,
it
like
October?
70. Yeah, wasn't it?
I thought it was
October or November.
November. I
Either
thought it
way,
was November.
what we are approaching October is what I'm saying, and it's it was right in there, October, November. So
Yeah.
you're running out of time. That month is gonna go
Cancel.
way really fast. Cancel your hotel room like right now, or approximately in an hour and a half to 2 hours when we're done talking.
Yeah, that too.
November 6th and 7th was
So it was,
originally
it was
the
like
date.
right in.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I canceled mine a while back, but Zen, when you were saying the other day, like, oh, I have to cancel, I went, oh my gosh, did I cancel mine? Oh, wait. And it is
Double check.
unfortunate for anybody who got hotel rooms or things like that that didn't have, some kind of return of your money. I think it always is good if you can find some place that doesn't make you pay a massive deposit or things like that for future stuff. Definitely keep an eye on sort of securing those locations because, oh boy, it made it a lot easier when we had to cancel. I didn't feel nearly as bad.
yeah.
It's so easy to cancel now too. They didn't used to have it where you could just go online, click 2 buttons, and your room is canceled. You used to have to call in. You can go online, click 2 buttons, and cancel your hotel room. Do it. Don't forget.
Yep.
Save that very expensive fee.
There's not going to be a lot of people there in San Diego in early November. So.
You probably won't be there. So.
I
Don't
mean,
pay
I know
for
I
it.
won't. I know I won't be there. So, all right. Any final thoughts on 16 before we move on after?
Please
like,
look forward
40
to it.
minutes of discussion.
Please look forward to it.
Yeah,
I want to be that kind of summoner.
Yeah, I know, buddy. I'm sorry.
It'd be
Well,
so
and now you
good.
can in Final Fantasy 16,
Yep.
the hit new game from Square Enix.
Featuring Dante from
2.
Devil May Cry. Not really, but
So we know next year. When do you think next year we'll hear more? You think it'll be as far as back as like E3?
Yeah, I do actually. I do.
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to
Probably.
get most of our news about the new X Pack in 14 at the start of the year. And so I don't think we're going to hear anything about 16 until after that. I mean, maybe we do with some of the initial PlayStation 5 like hype stuff that they're doing, after release. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear anything much more about it until a little bit later.
Could you imagine
They probably
an
have much more to
E3
show us.
where I mean, and who knows what E3 will look like next year, right? But the idea of like, here's Final Fantasy 14, here's Final Fantasy 16, both are produced by the same guy, and that's our.
We're
booth.
gonna get a crossover
Like-
fast.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, crossover. What are we looking at for the crossover? I
That's
think we'll
when
get the
16 will
face
be a
tattoo.
shark.
I think 14 will get the face tattoo.
Yeah.
I can see face
Maybe
tattoo.
16 gets the Hildebrand cameo.
Pipe
That'd
emote.
be hilarious.
Pipe
emote,
emo.
Yeah. We're overdue for it. Maybe we'll get the stubble finally, because he
Maybe-
does have
maybe-
stubble too.
Maybe 16 gets the car from 15 as featured in Final Fantasy 14.
There we go.
No.
Why would you say that? to me?
No. I mean, maybe they do something. We don't know anything yet about the combat or anything, right? But
no.
like, maybe if you can somehow summon or use abilities from the different icons, or
14
maybe-
eggies.
yeah, maybe they put like a 14
That's the crossover.
icon
We
in it.
finally
Uh-huh.
get those other eggies
Jesus.
in
Exactly.
16.
Yeah.
Not in
Maybe
14,
that-
in 16.
We get one of the hairstyles or like one of the armor sets from 16 and 14. I could see, or the grumpy chocobo.
Yeah.
The
Grumpy
totally
Chocobo.
not Emmett Selk inspired white chocobo. I could see that.
But yeah,
I saw people comparing the chocobo face to the what is he?
The shoe bill.
spoon
The shoe bill.
Shoe bill.
Yeah,
Shoe bill,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's they're not wrong. Like it
Mhm.
totally. Could you imagine Emmett Selk is like, all right, so at this moment in time, he's like Dr. Manhattan. I'm simultaneously a shoe bill in the Crystarium and this dude's angry chocobo.
Yeah.
He can do
It
that.
could be.
He's that kind of guy.
Yep. All right. I think it's time to move on.
So that was the news, guys. We actually have 14 things to talk about too.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting us to go as long as we did on that.
I
But
mean,
that's
we could
okay.
just whole episode 16. Do it.
the
Yeah,
moment
so
you were
it,
like, and 16 news came out, I was like, oh, here we go.
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to do another one of those like bullshit make it fit into the lore kind of episodes just talking about 16 with Ethis and Moose. Moose's laptop died though, and we still need to do a lore cast before we do that. So who knows when that's gonna happen?
2021,
unfortunately.
right?
Please look
2021.
forward to it.
Oh god, I hope it's before 2021. All right, so next we're gonna talk about now that they're all released, the Tales from the Shadows short stories. So the first one we have here it's one of those. I mean, they're all interesting little lore bits, right? So this one is Small
For
Mercies.
sure.
This one talks about Becklug back in the Verber days, with the princess Paldia. And you're thinking, Paldia, that name sounds familiar. Yeah. So what is it? Poorest Paldia, I think is the actual name. It's a hunt mob in Ilmeg.
She a big transform monster.
Yeah, chimera.
So basically, and we're not
Manticore
gonna
type
read these. We're just kind of
lady.
go through them and summarize and synopsize or whatever the right word is for that. But basically, her sister was the one that got picked to succeed the dad, the king, right? And she's like, oh well,
Older
all
sister.
right.
Makes sense. You know
Older
how
sister.
they do that.
Yeah, right.
royal thing.
That's how it works, right?
Mhm.
And you know, the dad's talking about, all right, well, we need to marry you off and all this stuff, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that. And so Becklug's like, all right, I've been studying the soul. Like that's like his thing. Anytime he comes in anywhere, he's like, hello, I study the soul. That's
I don't
Becklug.
ever want to hear someone say that as a start of a conversation, or as a response to a problem I have. Hey, yeah, you know, I'm not happy, you know,
It's-
in my
it's-
relationship.
it's-
Well, I've been
it's weird
studying
'cause
the soul.
Thinking about this now, there was actually I think it was a Tales from the Crypt episode with a doctor that's like, I think I found where the soul is, and it's like somewhere on the spinal cord, and it's like this little glowing ball, and it's like a whole.
Why do I
episode's
remember
weird.
that?
Right? Yeah, I don't. Memory
mean, the
works in
matter of the
interesting
soul-
ways.
The matter of the soul and or a lot of this actually, I think, ties broadly across a ton of different things that we've seen in 14. I mean, like, obviously we have the scientist himself in the Alamigo dungeon, the one who's been doing all the stuff, who's talking about the soul rebels and how he has been studying the soul, which then has led to the development of the artificial echo. We also even in the, which one is it? The one where you get the sweet glamour that was from... you go underwater, and it's where all of the
Oh, this sucks because I know the one
ex-royalty-
you're talking about. I can't think of the
it's
name
all-
now.
all of the ex-royalty.
It's
also,
underneath Alamigo.
underneath Alamigo.
Scala.
Scala.
Yeah.
Scala.
Drowned City.
Right. So like
Yeah.
we find out that there, and interesting that there are some parallels with that, right? Like in the drowned city of Scala, all of the like ex-royalty and or nobility of Alamigo, when their past ruler went sort of insane, actually sort of imprisoned them all down there and then transformed them and like shifted them. So we even see the same kind of monster that Paldia has been, and as you kill those mobs, they actually revert back to their human forms, which is pretty terrible.
So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, sorry. Well, you probably would have been dead anyway, right?
Like we were saying earlier, Final Fantasy is dark, guys.
It's one of those
Seriously.
ones where you get to the end and you're like, bum, 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 bum. Here's my sad face.
Yeah. Ooh.
It's the level down music
Yeah.
from 11.
Level down
Wow.
sad music.
Yeah. And so basically what happens is Becklug helps Paldia like kind of unlock her magic potential, and so her dad's like, okay, instead of marrying you off now, you're gonna be like on the court as like a mage. Okay, could be worse. So some things happen, some monsters show up.
Well, it doesn't happen in that order, and that's kind of significant.
Did I mess that up? I apologize.
It's not a big deal. The what is it? The court mage suggests that she be allowed to become a mage, but she doesn't really have any magic tendencies. So she goes.
That's right.
He suggests she goes and visits her friend Bucklick there and see if they can do anything. So it's a setup.
Yeah, Jafar, he just wanted to get rid of Jasmine for a bit. You know.
And I don't know if you know this, but Becklug they studied the soul.
The soul.
Yeah.
If you haven't,
That was a really good Becklug. That was really good, Zed. That's really excellent.
I hear
know
that.
you.
I hear that, but the visual I have is the costume from Shisui when you turn into the old lady.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
That's what she sounds like. She also studies the soul.
I'm an old lady, so I don't think sexy ladies are any good.
I'm gonna
That's
change
how that
my.
mechanic works.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna change
Now,
my
what would've
raise
been-
macro.
what would've
I've
been
studied the
even-
soul.
I've studied the soul.
Please do. Please
I
do.
will.
What would be even more amazing is if you transformed yourself into like the old woman, and then the like mermaid woman was like, "Ooh, I'm super into that," and then
Yeah.
that's it'd be very good. That's totally neither here nor there. However,
We're talking about
back to-
Becklug and the royalty of Verbert, and all of a sudden we're talking about like gilfs. Like, what the hell
It's
is
fine.
going on
Don't worry
here?
about it. It's not weird.
Wow.
par for the course. This seems like a normal day.
Wow. Oh, where
Sorry.
even was I anymore? I don't even know.
So it's suggested that she become a mage, and so she goes back Luke and she says, "I need to become a mage." And
Help
Luke
me,
says,
you're
"I
my
am
best friend.
You who
I
have
am
studied the
soul.
soul. Yeah, and so magic things and science-y soul-like things are done, and she gets put up on the court as a mage. And so, you know, they're buddies, and you know, that's kind of how it works, right? It's like, oh, you're my friend, please make me magic, and it's like, okay. And so stuff starts to happen, right? Monsters start showing up at the was it Longmere Lake, I think.
And if you've
Yeah.
done the tank quests, so the set of tank quests, and done like the backstory there, this correlates with the series of events that leads
Yeah.
to the stuff that you see there in the flashbacks as well.
Yeah. And so now with all this stuff going on, Crown Princess Saldia, who's her older sister, right, that got the throne, gets wounded on the front lines. Oh no, right? And so
Which we see that in the thing, don't we?
I think
In the
so.
quest.
I'm trying
think
to
so.
remember.
Well, I mean, we know that she's been obviously looking into the matter of the strange transformations and monsters that have been popping up around the kingdom. So I
That's
don't remember. If we
right.
actually
Yeah, that
That's
is in the
right.
quest because that's
Yeah.
why
That's
what's his face
with
leaves.
Tadric.
Yeah, he failed.
That's yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
It's been a while since I did that quest, but now that I
Yeah.
think about it, yeah.
I say what's his face. Brandon is his name.
Brandon.
Sir
Yeah.
Brandon, what's his face?
So Brandon,
Yeah.
what's his face of the Warriors? of
Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, so his whole story, right, and him helping the princess as they're looking into this and her ultimate death is the other side of the princesses, which I thought was really neat with this story because I didn't even know that Paldia existed beyond that hunt mark,
Mhm.
you know, O Porus Paldia. And I think it also gives a lot more, you know, to Becklug's backstory and some of the stuff that kind of leads into that dungeon and like the way that they've sort of secluded themselves.
Yeah. And so eventually, right, TLDR, Paldia starts kind of transforming herself, right? Because of all this magic and all this stuff that's going on, she starts to look a little off. And so we've got wasn't Brandon, which one of the Warriors of Light was in here.
He does show back up. That is Brandon.
Is it Brandon? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like we should just, you know, put her out of her misery. And Beck looks like, hey, I study the soul.
Jesus.
I can fix this.
I almost thought you said I studied the sword, and I was like, are we doing that now?
I mean, that's what I was gonna do with my raise macro, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we find
Um,
out that she's essentially been manipulated, right?
Yeah.
So like her mind has been sort of overtaken by this court mage that was secretly transforming all
Yeah,
the
and
people in the
basically
kingdom.
they played Becklug, right, to get her the, you know, this magic enhancement or whatever, and it's all going sideways.
I really liked this story because that particular role quest left me wondering how the heck did this guy know what to do? Like, he doesn't seem like he would have them smarts there. Where did he learn this information? And then the story is like this silver platter. This is how he learned.
Yeah, he like
Yeah.
literally learned through, you know, the information that she was able to get when he took over her mind from Becklug about how to like transform, which then set him off on his spree of like warping people. And then when her sister confronted alongside Brandon and everybody and was killed, she was kind of left in the background, and she started to transform, and Becklug had to essentially step in and be like, no, I can't bear to see my friend, like my only friend, the only person that I loved and that I tried to help, be lost to this. And it's so terrible.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Everybody's playing everybody, but he still like considers her a friend, and even at the end, like she's talking about how like, you know, she's like, oh, I never liked my sister and all this stuff, and Becklug's like, hey, no, like you loved them. She's like, yeah, you're right. I'm so sorry. And she kind of has that moment where she kind of like breaks out of that like, oh, I hate everything. She's like, oh my gosh, like what has happened, you know? And so kind of after all this, you know, Becklug's like, all right, I'm out. And he goes probably, you know, to the Grand Cosmos, where he kind of just lives by himself with all of his familiars. We never find out what happens to Paldia, except for the fact that there is a hunt NM named O Poorest Paldia that roams.
We killed her over and over again for eternity.
Yeah.
There's actually a point.
We kill her for nuts.
In the story where they straight up call her that.
Yeah.
I think the court mage, just straight up calls her, oh, Poorest Paldia. Let's see what we can do for you, and you're not wanting to get married state.
She was, I think they say she was imprisoned in a cell beneath the castle.
Yeah.
And people who were like going through or like looking for stuff found her and opened it, and she gets out and she's roaming the hills. So now anytime you kill her, you can feel bad about it.
Yeah.
You're killing the poor princess of Verbert for nuts. How does that make you feel?
You could feel good about it. She's no longer wandering, right? That she's with her family maybe now.
I mean, she was part of the
until
downfall of
her spawn window comes back up.
Well, but I think this is really important, right? Because she was part of the downfall of the kingdom, but there is a line that says, in that moment, Becklug saw the truth, that Todrick had bound the poor girl's heart with dark magics and forced her to do his bidding. So, like, she, in trying to break herself out of the expectation that was placed on her that was causing her so much grief, like, agreed to work with Todrick, but not necessarily, like, not to the degree of, like, I will bring down the kingdom and ruin everybody. To the degree of, like, I would really like to have some magic so I don't have to marry some guy.
It's like a Disney movie gone wrong.
Yes, it is.
If you could change your fate, would you? Don't.
Yes, it's like, it's exactly that, like the reverse of it. And so really she was another victim of the kingdom, but she herself was vilified because of the public declaration she made while under his control. And it's terrible. Like, I think they locked her underneath the castle because they believed her to be a traitor. And Becklug was one of the only ones that was like, no, this was my friend. Like, keep her there, please don't kill her.
They were straight up gonna kill her, and he was like, no, I want to study her to see if I can reverse that. He was lying.
I have studied the soul. I can fix this.
Yeah,
it's sad. It's honestly, it's kind of funny because I wish that we saw more of this, like, in game with hunts, where like maybe in the zones there were actually like little bits of lore you could uncover, or like if you killed a certain hunt target or something, it would give you a little short, like, find this letter or find that letter, because I love the hunts. Like, and it's such a silly thing. Like,
have a quest pop up after you kill one.
Didn't the original ones actually have a little lore tidbit when you first like were told where to go? Like there were NPCs, hunt NPCs that were like, go find this guy and he's got blah 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 blah. And there wasn't a whole lot there, and nobody really uses those anymore because you get the little thing that tells you it's over here now.
Well, I think with that first batch too, there were some pretty tedious like spawn conditions as well. And did we get those kind of spawn conditions, or do they just show up now? I honestly don't know.
I'm pretty sure they just show up now.
Yeah,
they were like, oh, that wasn't very nice of us. Just kidding. Go ahead, have them.
They kept some of the spawn conditions and things on, like, I think the S ranks. So, but like that's usually like you have to do this thing or kill, or like, you know, you get like the special ones.
That's right. The S ranks.
But they don't do it with most of the just other ones, as far as I know.
Yeah. I would love some sort of enemy list like other JRPGs have, where, you know, you fight it and you get a blurb, like just on a page somewhere, and if you fight it 5 times, you get a second blurb, and you fight it 10 times, you get a third blurb or something. Like that's,
there you go.
You can just bolt that right on.
In-game bestiary.
Yeah, but this story was, I thought, really neat. I don't know how everybody else felt about it, but like I really like these last 4 that they released because I think each one of them kind of addresses something in the world or about like a character that really did maybe flesh out one of the few things that I still was kind of like, I don't know about. And Beck
Yeah.
Luke it's tough because I almost wish that we had like encountered their character early on when we're
Yeah.
like first meeting the new Mo, and like they had been really abrasive to us or something, or we
Right.
just a little something, because as it was in the patch content, they just kind of show up for convenience. I know things about the soul, and then you're like, okay, great, and you're
Sure,
kind
that
of
sounds
playing.
right.
And it starts off too like you go to the Grand Cosmos and Beck Lug's like the crazy hermit, get out of my house, like sicking his familiars on you, like.
I definitely did wonder what made them so cranky and have to have their own private old style elf castle.
Especially
now
when
we
you
know.
meet the other new Moo and you go, oh, they really want to help us. Why does this one really not want to help us?
Yeah.
I mean, after what happened, I probably wouldn't be very trusting of anybody either.
Exactly.
And I mean, they carry so much guilt because they were essentially like their knowledge was part of the downfall of it was the downfall of the entire kingdom that was misused. And so them to like then later say to you, I will help you with this and I will, give you this knowledge again, is a huge show of faith in the, future for everyone, when for so long they've been living in the past. And that's such a great story, but we don't completely get that in the actual X-Pack. So I was really glad that they released it here and we actually got to kind of see it. I thought that was cool.
I just love all of the pre-Flood of Light world building that they do. I want so much more of it. So much more.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Anything else on that one?
So I think I mean that sums it up. So the next one, a dream partnership.
So I took on this one because I love this guy. So the story starts out by talking about Amuro, which apparently when the old blood has quickened, aka they sort of get that enlightened, like, oh hey, I have smart thinks and can talk now. It also makes them live much longer. I'm gonna put my glasses on like an old Amuro because this text is really small. But yeah, so this is actually about the youth of Seto, the big giant Amuro in also Ilmeg, actually.
Who I completely forgot about when we were wrapping up the last patch, and I'm like, who is this person? What?
Oh,
I
so
love
devastating.
Seto.
Okay.
I love
Goodest,
him.
bestest boy. Number
He's a
one,
good
best
boy.
boy.
Yeah. But anyway, he's chilling in his giant nest over in Ilmeg, and he starts to think about days gone by, right? And the first thing he thinks about is not so good. He's basically like emaciated and dying, chilling in Nabatharang, which is gone now pretty much. And he's under the ownership of a guy who's basically beating him slowly to death to drag around his cart. Turns out that this guy is a thief, and our warriors of light, well, 3 of our warriors of light in this case, the Lalafell, what's her name, Limit and Ardbert and Brandon again. He's featured in 2 stories back to back. They show up and they're like, you're the bad guy. So like Sato's expecting to get beaten, to have to get up out of his nap, but nothing happens, and he's like, oh, what's going on? Who are these strangers? And that's when he first meets his best buddy Ardbert.
Wow.
So as I was reading this, the Jade Fox kind of ticked off in my head. It's not a super like non-cliche name, but we do see that in 14 already. It's the thief that features in the goldsmith quests, the first like 1 to 50 goldsmith quests.
That's right.
That's a cute little Easter egg for the game itself.
That's neat, Zen. And I mean, also with Nabatharang sort of being a kind of like parallel to that area and Ula, and interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Their names really aren't similar at all, and I didn't look to see, like, we don't know what this guy looks like, so we don't know if they look similar, like the carriage guy we first meet when we get there, for example. But the Jade Fox is a thief in both places. So yeah, that's how they meet, and they are well rewarded for finding the Jade Fox and turning him in. And they split up the money 3 ways. And this is an interesting thing that they add. Brandon, who is a sad boy at this point in time for getting kicked out of Bobert, apparently drinks a lot. Has various revelries, they call them. So probably drinks. Maybe does a little bit more than that. Who knows? Let's not think badly of our friend Brandon over here, who is a paladin.
Yeah.
But anyway, the two, Artbert and Limit, are like, so we're gonna give you all your money, but we're gonna give it to you slowly, so you don't waste it, you big drunk. I thought that was an interesting detail. And then for Artbert, he takes his share and he goes and he buys Sato from the city, right? He's like, oh, this poor creature that was about to get its butt kicked, like, he seems like a good boy. He can come with me. Here's some money. And the city people are like, why do you want this? It's pretty much dead. And Brandon is a grumpy boy, and he's like, why do you want this? It's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
And there's a comment that Sato basically like snorts hearing that from Brandon, and it starts a little like rivalry between the two in the story, which is weird and random and kind of cute, right? So yeah. Any thoughts beyond that for now, friends? I'm just kind of babbling.
I just think it's so good and everything's so adorable. And I mean, like, more proof of Ardbert's personality and heart, which I love seeing. Like, you know, they're saying like this thing, you know, this Amaro is basically dead. Like, we couldn't do anything with it. We were probably just gonna kill it. And he's like, oh no. Like, no. And he goes and he buys him. And I mean, of course, like, he's made some observations about the creature's intelligence, which also I thought was neat, that he's not just kind-hearted, he's observant, right? So like we get this note that he's like watching as the Amaro like moves and adjusts itself to adapt to, you know, its overbearing and abusive master, to try and like lessen what's going to happen to him. And it's just, I don't know, it just hit me right in the feels place so hard.
So there's a portion that tells you where Ardbert's from. He's from Kalusia, and his family was on a farm. So he grew up around animals and raised animals and knew how to take care of them. And that's part of why he was observant about Sato, because he was like, this particular creature is acting a little bit quirky for what it ought to be doing. So he was observant in that way.
Yeah, he says such rare intelligence is a thing to be nurtured. He's like, this is a smart animal. Like, this animal is pretty cool. I'm going to keep it. Right?
And then Brandon's just like, so whatever, awesome. Give me some of my money. I'm thirsty.
Yeah, basically.
I need to go have revelries.
I like that they have that bit about Brandon, because it's, you know, we talk about why was Becklug isolated? Why wasn't he hanging out with all the other puppers, right?
Yeah.
And then it's because of all the crazy crap that happened in Verbert. And then you have Brandon, right? He's just like, I'm just going to go off and drink, and, you know, that's how I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to live in my own mansion or whatever. I'm just gonna drink and
smash things and drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink and fight things. Yeah.
So yeah,
he's a great paladin.
Yes. Well, you know, paladins in the source aren't super great either.
Exactly.
So I guess
that's what I mean. Yeah.
He's just following the theme there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ardbert then turns around and teaches Sato a bunch of tricks. And Sato, this is all from Sato's perspective, if that wasn't clear, by the way. So Sato's like, this guy's nice to me, doesn't beat me up, he makes sure that I have food and water, but he's teaching me these tricks. I don't really get it, but you know what? I'm not getting beaten, so cool, that's fine. That's fine, let's do this. So they use Sato as bait, basically. On one of their little adventures, they're hired out to take care of an overrun populace of coyotes or something like that. And so they're like, okay, Sato, you're still kind of skin and bones. Go ahead and lay over there. Look like you're dead. Coyotes are going to come try and eat you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is this the one? Yeah, Sato's like, okay, well, I guess this is where they go ahead and get rid of me. Saw this coming.
He does the like old man meme, like, guess I'll die.
Yeah, guess I'll die. I should have known. Men are all the same, is his thought, right?
Yeah.
So laying there, he's all boo. Oh well, at least I got to live a little bit longer and eat some totally sweet foods. But then our hero Ardbert's like, nah, dude, come here. What he actually says is, Sato, to me. At which point Sato's like, oh, is that what that trick is for? So he gets up, runs to the friends. The friends run in and beat up the coyotes. And they do that apparently a number of times.
I love, there's a fun detail here because Brandon is still like razzing Seto. So when Seto runs away with the
Oh, that's
coyotes
later.
following him. Oh no, it's this one, isn't it? Because
Oh, yep, you're right, you're right,
He
you're
jumps right over Brandon's head as he's running to Ardbert,
Yeah.
and all the coyotes end up in Brandon's face, and he's like, "What
Yeah.
the heck, man? Sucks to
This
suck,
is the
nerd.
kind of stuff that I would have loved to have like had in a cutscene.
Yeah.
We got the
Right.
echo. Come on, give it."
Yeah.
Show us,
Yeah.
show us.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
so-
know why these two need a rivalry, but they do. They do.
And it's
Well,
great.
I think it's like it's another facet of Seto's interaction with the group, right? And the way that this story culminates, and I mean we'll get there when we get there, but like the way that it culminates is all about that. Like Seto not just being a mount, not just being a creature, but being like a true part of their group. And in many ways, the only surviving member of that partnership. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like he
That got
he
dark
starts to
Yeah.
I know, but like because of the way that he starts to interact with everybody, right? He's showing that like he's sassy. He's smart. Like he knows that he can do this, that he can get back at him, which is like a very it's just more proof of that intelligence as opposed to just like mindlessly obeying or, you know, like being adoring of everybody. He has his own personality. Like it's there.
I think it's interesting too, like if you kind of strip away the idea of like, you know, the intelligence and stuff of the Amuro and the fact that like, you know, where kind of Brandon is, right, in a state of mind, it's like, yeah, let's give him like the horse of the group, right? That'll be the rival for the guy that likes to go off and drink it, you know, like it's just like okay.
I didn't think about it that way, but that's adorable too.
It's super cute. And I think it kind of snaps him out of his reverie a little bit to be like confronted by that, which is fun.
Yeah.
That's true. That it does show like Brandon kind of being put in a weird situation, which raises his spirits a little bit more, which is sweet.
Yeah.
So this final adventure that they talk about in this particular story, they're fighting or hunting down something called the Amber Terror, which is screwing with people's stuff. I don't remember specifically how, but Sato learns how to mimic the mating call of this bird. So that's how they get the bird to come out and chill with them, which is hilarious and just further shows that this Amuro is smart as a whip. Oh wow, smart as a whip.
Oh, boy.
That's the beginning of the story.
Yeah,
That joke, sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Accidental.
Final Fantasy is
Accidental.
dark, you guys.
I mean, yes.
I
He's
didn't
smart.
mean to. He's just regular smart. I'm sorry. Anyway, so even Ardbert at this point is like, "Wow, I didn't teach you that. Where'd you learn how to do that, buddy?" So yeah.
So it
this
was like, I
bird-
don't know if you knew this, but I have studied the soul, and
Oh
I
my
can
God.
do.
It's like, what? I think the Amber Terror is cute. Whatever.
No.
I'm just getting
Don't
down.
judge.
I'm kind of a bird, kind of mostly. What?
Like a
Anyway.
bird camel dog.
Mostly.
Mostly. So they show up. The Amber Terror shows up, and they fight it. And this Amber Terror is like, I don't want to die, so it runs off, and they follow it. And I guess it's got some dragon tendencies or some like crow raven tendencies because it's got a hoard of stuff. After they kill it, they find a bunch of neat little stuffs, neat little gold and whatnot things. And Brandon picks one out. Says he reaches down and plucks a saucer-sized medallion from the heap. And of course, reading this, I'm like, I know what that is. I know what that is. Yep. So this is Brandon's particular chosen prize. But Ardbert's like, nah, you can't have that. Snatches it away and is like, this needs to go to the real hero here today. Brandon thinks he means himself. So he's like, dude, I took care of you during that fight. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, I know. But it's not for me. and he fashions a necklace out of it, and that is Sato's medallion that we get out of the lake for him. So I think we already knew that that was from Artbert, but
Yeah.
the way
That's
yeah,
the
the way that
details
he
of
did it,
yeah.
it's really sweet. Especially because the whole time he's like recognizing Sato's amazing skills, and he's like, "Nah, here, this is your good boy reward forever."
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
And we wonder why Brandon likes to go have revelries. Hey, cool, check out this cool, and we're giving this to the bird.
I mean, there's a bunch of other treasures he can have. It's fine, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
But he
just so
wanted
great,
that one.
That's too bad.
I love that. I mean, but at the same time, he does like get on the party train. You know, he says 3 cheers for Sato, the
he
wiliest
does.
Amaro that
Yeah.
ever lived. And like
Yeah.
you get that little bit where it's like, oh, it was kind of a funny little thing. Like lighthearted though it was, Ardbert's gesture that day served to recognize Sato as an equal, a full partner in the band's growing list of accomplishments. And like there's that like the twist, that like beautiful thing that I think, you know, really brings them all together as like a group and an ensemble and like
Yeah.
solidifies it. And it is, you know, something that's been given to him that is recognizing him as something more than just an Amaro. And I think it's so sweet. And also, if you decided to keep that medallion from that good boy and lie to him, you
Go to
deserve
hell.
what you get. You deserve what you get.
Yes, exactly.
That's what this story is. This story is like, you made a huge mistake. You messed up and you didn't even realize it. And like, you probably realize it a little bit, honestly.
played
'cause
yourself.
You played yourself. But yeah, it's so sweet. It's
Very
just so
cute.
sweet.
I love this story.
I
But
really
I
like-
think go ahead.
Oh, you ahead. I really liked at the end that they say, you know, like, this was so good, they were so good that Renda Ray was like, oh, they hunt beasts, I should join them, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of gives us that full timeline of when, who joined, like, what order and why, what quest. And, you know, sometimes we knew because they were in the role quest, but sometimes it was a little bit like...
Yeah, they were a little janky. It was a little
Yeah.
hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's
And I also
super- Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Zed.
I also like when we do the role quests, we do get to see the party coming together and
Yeah.
how they sort of all jive and stuff, but we never really see how Sato does this. So I'm super
Yeah.
glad they added this story so that we know that he is more than just Artbert's buddy. He's
Yep.
part
Yeah.
of the party. He's the 6th or 7th member of the party.
He is the Amaro of light.
Yes. And I love it too because I like that they kind of worked in the fact that this is gonna be so silly. But like really some of the only content that anybody uses their chocobos for anymore or their companion for is like hunts.
Yeah.
Like going out and doing the hunts or like
You're not
having
wrong, yeah.
like out in the zones. And I really thought that was cute. Like I don't know if they did that intentionally. It kind of seems like it though, but it made me feel very warm fuzzy for our companion as well.
I just wish that
So-
it was possible to get an Amaro companion. Like, that would be really hard to think about because
Yeah.
you can't put it in your pocket and take it back to
You could
the
if it
source.
were an egg. Do they come from
Yeah?
eggs? I don't even know.
I don't know.
They
That's a
do
good
have
question.
a rookery. There's an Amaro rookery,
Yeah,
right?
so they must.
So theoretically, there are eggs involved in a rookery.
I'm gonna go over there and see if I can't find any eggs.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So that's pretty much that is the end of the thing, pretty much, right? Yeah. They
No, then there's one little last thing.
no. I mean his memory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the end of his memory.
So after that, he comes out of his reverie and he's like, ah, yes, a better time. He's thinking about how he got so big that the necklace around his neck snapped, and he was so grateful to the adventurer who brought it back to him. So we make an appearance in the story, hooray! And he also thinks that he asks the pixies to make him a new necklace for the thing, and he thinks that they put like a dream charm on it, which is why he's just been napping there for a long time, which is very nice, but also he doesn't seem to mind. He's like, that's cool, whatever. But then he suddenly, like, having thought about his past, he wakes up, decides he needs to get the heck out, take a wing around Ilmeg or wherever. And he says he's going to go, this is where it possibly gets dark. He says he's going to go visit the Weaver, which is a nickname for Nimia, who is a god about fate. And Nimia lilies you put on graves. So maybe he's like, all right, it's time to go be dead.
I mean, he old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's very old.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the pixies. It's funny because you're right. Like they do technically, I guess it seems like ensorcel it. And
Yeah.
yet he says that there's these like slumbering sojourns to the sun-dappled past. It almost seems like it's a kindness, which is so, it makes me cry already.
Yeah.
I'm just tearing up already. Like
Yeah.
that, because he's just been alone, and he, you know, at this point, like there's nothing for him to do. And when you last see him in the 5.3 quest, and he says like, I think I feel like flying again, and then you think about like that, like this gift that they almost gave him, these dreams, like whether
Yeah,
or not
that's
it's been making him
exactly-
sleep, but it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
these dreams of all that he had lost, but happy dreams, like happy dreams. And then he flies away and he dies, and I want to die inside. I am dead.
Oh, and if the exact line is, he would visit the one they call the Weaver and thank them for this gift, for these blessed dreams. And he was there. It's like a twofold thing here. So he's having the dreams about his past, but he's visiting the Weaver, who is the goddess of fate, basically. So thanking her for the dreams is kind of like thanking her for his fate, the life that he lived too, right?
Right. See, I didn't even think about it that way. I was just like, oh, there's a pixie called the Weaver, and they're just.
I'm sorry, don't cry.
No,
That's what
I mean, it's fine.
See, that's what I did, right? Because we technically, I don't think we have the 12 right on the first, and so we know that pixies play with dreams, and so
I mean, we do
I
have
think
the
it's a
12 on the
double
first.
entendre. Yeah.
They're not quite the same, and they don't call her Nemia, but there's a very good chance that all of the stuff
Yeah.
that made us the 12 on the source has trickled through through the first as well.
It's the capitalization.
So that's what I
of
got from
Weaver.
it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
gets me. It's the capitalization of it in the story. It's like, yeah, that could be just a pixie, but it just seems more than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be either. I mean, they don't really say, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they
it's not
won't.
like a sad ending. It's not like, and then he flew, but about 10 feet later, he descended and died. Like,
Just dove right back into the lake and just. I love how she's getting all emotional, and then she snorts from laughing.
After being the one to say that he got 10 feet and then fell out of the
Right.
Yeah.
And my whip joke was that.
Yeah.
Rook wins the award for most terrible person on this episode of Aetheryte Radio.
Yay, thank you, you saved me.
We should get you like a medallion or something.
Oh,
wow.
You are
I just wanted to bring it full
actually
circle.
killing me. Oh my gosh, I'm dying. I'm dying.
Don't
I'm sorry. I made myself laugh and cry very hard simultaneously.
We get a medallion with a picture of Seto, but then like do one of those like how the toys they have like the little blue like simulated water kind of inside of it. Like we'll get one of those.
Oh no.
Have a little like life preserver locket hanging
I think
next to it.
I was gonna say before. Dang it! I can't stop laughing. Okay, I'm here for real this time. I swear. Nobody make a single sound. So help me. I was going to say.
We were trying not to make a sound too.
Oh God. Okay, I was going to say, I'm doing a great job making a really good podcast for Fusion right now, and for everybody else here. I think that it's very purposefully done, right? And that it's not supposed to be sad, right? Like it's supposed to be a beautiful.
He
like,
lived his
celebration
life.
day.
He's happy. He's content. He's moving on. Yeah.
He led a good life. He's ready.
And
to
then
be
he
done.
just nosedives right into Longmere Lake.
Stop it. Stop. Anyway, I liked all of these stories, but I think this one's probably my favorite. Just because of how adorable and sweet and like wrap uppy it is.
We broke Rook.
For the good boy. He a very good boy. He had a good life with his buddy.
Yeah.
He even got to see his buddy before, going to visit the Weaver, whatever that may or may
Why
not
are you still laughing?
Oh man. It's such a great ending because he just disappeared on the first. Just wanted to let you know that he disappeared on the first. Just saying, someone might be exploring the first soon in a D&D game or something. Just saying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't you dare make us find his dead body somewhere. Somehow,
Oh my
you
God.
God.
I would never do that.
Pixies send us to empty the lobster traps. We're like, oh hey, what's that over there?
No, not ever.
Oh boy. I don't know why I laughed so hard at that. I can't even explain. It's been like since high school that I laughed at something that hard and I just could not stop. I
Wow.
might be a terrible person. I'm not sure, but we're gonna figure it out. Maybe.
Zen's like trying to get it back on topic, being serious, and you can just see Rook just
She
losing
muted
it
herself. It's
in the
fine.
back.
I muted myself so no one had to hear my absolute devolving into madness in the background.
The cackling.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
what I do.
I think it's just because the story really did, for all my cackling, it really did touch me very much emotionally. But when I made that joke, I surprised myself with it, and then I could not stop laughing about it. Whew. All right, no, I got it together. We're good now. We're good now.
Wow.
It's a very good one. He's a very good boy. It's very sweet. The end.
So that's the end of that one. And it's your turn.
Oh boy.
Oh, this one.
I
This
pulled
one-
it up and I was
so
like, oh, the
good.
very first word. How appropriate.
Uh-huh.
Emmett Selk. There's my garbage man. I love this story. I'm living for this story. I am dying for this story. I just love this story. For anybody who doesn't know, this one's called Ere Our Curtain Falls, and it's the third one that was released, and I here am in charge of it mostly because the moment Fusion said, "How about this?" I started yelling in the distance, like, "Please let me talk about this."
I
one."
I like
the
how you called him
Emmett
your
Selk story.
garbage man.
He
Yeah.
my garbage man, and I love him more than life itself.
Did I really quick? Did I
Go.
say? I'm not sure I did the title for the previous story. It's called A Dream Partnership, and now that we've finished summarizing it, my heart.
Ouch. Ouch.
See, now that Rook is called Emmett Selker Garbage Man, all I can think about is like the garbage man, like taking the thing, emptying it out, and just looking at me. Remember me, and then he just leaves and goes and grabs the next garbage can.
That's fine.
That is
That's
Emmett
weird.
Selk.
That's really weird.
except
That's
he
really weird to me.
empties it, and then he climbs into the garbage, and then he closes it slowly. It's like, and then he just closes it. And then he
Edit the
shows it again
grudge.
later.
Yeah. you
Garbage
can
men
see
in
the
your part of the
costume
world are
all
very
aboard.
different from mine. I don't.
This one is super cool. I think a lot of us, myself included, and I know Fusion too. Any little tidbit of Amaritime lore that they can give us about
Bring
anything.
it. Just
I
all
am
of
just
it.
like, I will never stop consuming this, and I love it. And this one's really neat. And actually, it almost perfectly answers a lot of the questions that we even brought up in our initial impressions of Patch 5.3, which I am so excited about. And I'm sure when we do our lore episode, this will also get brought into it because it's really, really cool. So it starts out, we are back in ancient Amarat, and it is essentially a memory of Emmett Selk's. So he is kind of, walking through the cities in the capital, and he gets called and summoned by none other than our friend here from the very, very end. Oh my gosh, my brain's Elidibus.
Littlebird, yeah.
Elidibert. Elidibus, who we have obviously had a lot coming out of 5.3 with, his role, his figure, who he was within the convocation, and knowing that he eventually sacrificed himself to become the heart of Zodiark. So as he's walking through, he gets yelled at by Elidibus, who sort of like waves him down and rushes over, and confirming he was a child, or a youth at least. I assume he was like a teenager, is kind of...
They mentioned he's small in stature, so
And then
that means.
They refer to him as the youth throughout the story, though. So, but there has been a little bit of discussion in this with some of the Japanese translation versus the English translation, from what I've seen, where I guess there's a little ambiguity, but it does seem to me from the description and then from the fact that Emmett Selk refers to him as the youth, that we could safely say, and the way he appears at the end of 5.3,
Yeah.
he was likely young, which also, though, made him very pure of heart, which we find out in the story, which is really sweet. So there's a volcano that in the rest of the world is sort of going to be exploding soon. And a little bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? Ancient
Pompeii.
Pompeii. Much like Pompeii, there is a civilization there that's on that island that is going to be obliterated by it. And the convocation has kind of decided that that's okay. Like, that they're just
Star Trek, hands off.
Yeah, he's like, I guess those people will die and their homes will get exploded. Or, maybe they can evacuate. That's cool, too.
Maybe they shouldn't have set up shop by a volcano.
Yeah.
Not our problem.
So even though, like, the lands are fertile farmlands and things like that, they're just kind of saying this is a natural sort of thing that's going to happen, and unfortunately, whoever dies, dies. However, Elidibus apparently doesn't feel totally on board with that, but very much so, Azem does not either. So Elidibus comes to Emmett Selk and says, like, hey, do you know about this volcano? Well, it turns out that Azem went there. And even though everybody else was like, don't do it, Azem was like, oh, but Azem, do it though. And decided risking another censure, which I really liked that detail, that Azem has been a problem for everybody for a while now. Azem has
And
gone
continues
to
to
the
be after they're not themselves anymore.
Yes. Azem, who, as we know, post 5.3, is who we likely were before our soul was sundered. Well, not who likely, we were Azem before our soul was sundered.
It's us.
Yeah, it's us. Has been causing problems. Decides to go to the volcano. Elidibus seems pretty chill with this. Elidibus is like, it's kind of cool though. I'm kind of into it, and I was like, this is very exciting. And I love this little bit. Something that I think has just set the internet on fire, but like in a fun way, has been that when Emmett Selk is like, okay, so what did this doofus that I love tell you about why they're going to go do this? And sweet little Elidibus is like, well, they told me there's really good grapes on the island, and that they had to go save the really good grapes. And Emmett Selk is like, oh, you sweet summer child. And I just love it. It's so good. There's been so much debate online about whether, Azem is just like, he knows or they know that Elidibus is kind of a gullible child and is like, lol, yeah, it's because there's grapes, and then like leaves to actually go save the people in their homes and things like that, or if Azem really is kind of eccentric and it's just like, I do actually dig those grapes though, so I'm gonna go and deal with this.
I mean, we do get some interesting dialogue choices.
What's really what I really like the most about the grapes part is there is a whole long ass quest chain in the corresponding. I assume that they're talking about Kalusia.
Yeah.
Because that's the volcanic island that is the area, right? So in the source, we have Lenosha. There's a long ass quest chain where you have to find some old grapevines and like bring them back to life, right? Like replant, rebring the grapes back
about
up.
Wine.
So
yeah.
Through time, we have been trying to preserve these grapes, you guys.
And something that I didn't note, but that is actually really interesting, is if you everybody's been helping with my names today because I keep forgetting. Dungeon, Ancient Lalafells, the tomb that's
Wondrous
there.
Palace.
No, it's you have the stones that have the inscriptions on them that you have to put on the thing. Karn, Sunken Temple of Karn. So apparently Karn was a temple to Azem. This blew my mind. Was a temple dedicated to Azem. Well, Azema.
Azema,
as we would know. And the sigils that are found in there are representative icons of the deity. And grapes, the two that you do at the end, it's fire grapes.
Yeah,
I always know because I call it, so I never forget. I go,
fire grapes.
I go, hot grapes every single time.
Yeah, it is.
And that's this story. This is the fire grape story.
Yeah, this is why.
It's actually incredibly cool seeing the way that this all kind of trickles down. And
I always thought that was a strawberry.
Yeah.
No, it's grapes. It's
because
like
they call it berries, don't they?
They call it the fruit of wisdom.
It's fruit. That's right. I always think of it as a strawberry, and I think that because I thought that was the berries were first.
No, it's hot grapes. I know because then every single time I get to that thing and I go, hot grapes.
The way I remember it is strawberries are my favorite, so strawberries are first. So I don't know, maybe I'm probably remembering it wrong because it's been a long ass time.
I'm remembering it wrong. We're gonna have to have a throwdown over this. They're a little bunch of grapes. It's funny that
who actually gets the things and tips the scales anymore. You just hit it, kill the ghost, and go in.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is next Dungeon Siege stream we need to run Karn first. Is what I'm getting from this.
I only get those 2 stones, and I put them on every single time because I like doing mechanics. Because I'm a good boy, Zen.
That's fine.
So anyway, all of my.
I guess I'm a garbage man.
No, I mean, if you were a garbage man, I would still love you, and that's been proven.
Yeah.
Before you move on, as the summoner, I have to talk about Ifrita.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we really have to talk about them.
Let me make a quick, because I was gonna put
Yes,
this in
do.
here.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You
Okay, so hot grapes aside and everything else, it's pretty interesting, right? So obviously this is a story that has continued on, but Elidibus comes up to Emmett Selk and is like, I kind of need your help to make sure that Azem doesn't get like slapped on the wrist. And it turns out that what Azem is going to do, now hear me out, is that Azem is going to summon Ifrit, Ifrita, which was an idealized sort of epitome of fire. Who created it? They said who did.
La Habrea.
La Habrea. So La Habrea creates it, and then stored the idea away. And they're like, they decided, Azem decided they're going to take this and they're going to take it there, and then they're going to use the fire energy that's coming out of the lava to create the embodiment of and contain the embodiment of Ifrita, and then move it elsewhere and kill it dead. Much like we do all the time in the story, which also I think is super clever and very, very fun. And, Elidibus is like, can you help and make sure that, Azem doesn't get in trouble? And Emmett Selk's like, taking Azem's side, huh? And Elidibus is like, no, just,
You promised me some grapes.
I'm just hearing everybody out equally. And Emmett Selk makes the comment of like, how could Azem even get their hands on this Ifrita? And then kind of sits there and goes, oh, Hythlodius is the one in charge of all that, huh? Yeah, well, Azem definitely went to Hythlodius and was like, there's some dope grapes though. And Hythlodius was like, oh yeah, sweet, you want Ifrita? Check it out. Go for it.
So I really like I don't
no,
want to
I was
interrupt
gonna
you.
say, so please go ahead. That's the idea there.
Okay. I really like this Charles, did your stuff. You're the summoner, so I'm going to give you priority.
No, I
Good?
just wanted to talk about it. That's
Okay.
all I wanted to do.
Okay, so I really like that this is included in the story because it very well could mean that Quetzalcoatl that we see in the end of that dungeon is the same as Ifrit or any of the other ones, meaning that the original name for all of the primals was Guardian Force, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, look, as somebody who enjoys 8, I'm on
know.
board with that idea.
Yep. I'm
We're
alright.
team 8 here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was if that's the case, and I think it very well could be with this particular thing. People create these elemental or whatever manifestations of concentrated element thing, right?
Yeah.
And one of them just happened to still be hanging around, named Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah. Was just left behind, and in the
La Habrea is like, we'll make the Almulja do Ifrit. We'll have Quetzalcoatl. I don't really have a Beastman tribe that resonates with Quetzalcoatl. You can just stay there.
Yeah.
Well, but we do see one of the Amaritines transform into Quetzalcoatl, which also bringing back some of the we were talking about earlier with 16 or the idea of iconic summoning or Isael or even when we get Shinryu, which technically is kind of a merging of that, right? The idea, or Hades, who transforms into a figure which we know he used as like part of the stuff and jobs and duties that he had back in the ancient times. It's really interesting, the idea of what if people were able to harness and use these if they had a more complete soul, and or like we see here, like obviously this is not tying it into a person, but the idea of using this template, this guiding plate, to then put all of that excess fire aether into and then disperse it safely as opposed to letting it rampage naturally.
It is so Eden. It's such a it just ties in so well with what we're doing to bring back, because we're like, okay, we'll gather as much as we can, we'll give it form, and we'll murder it. And it always works.
Give it form and murder it.
The thought
but
that
I remember previously we talked a whole bunch about what the heck Quetzalcoatl could be, and now we have maybe a slightly clearer idea.
Yeah, the thought that keeps coming back into my head now, thinking about Elidibus as a youth, because this whole time he's not been, right? He's like an adult, like he's grown ass man, like walking around and talking to us and whatever. All I can think about, and this is, I apologize in advance for the reference. Any of you watch Power Rangers Turbo growing up?
No.
So for some reason in Turbo, they decided that one of the Power Rangers was going to be a kid.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
when he morphs, he turns into like a
Full adult.
a full adult.
Yeah,
That's Elidibus.
I forgot about
Oh
that.
wow.
Elidibus is the
Wow.
kid Power Ranger of the
I was
convocation.
just thinking he's like the Robin to our Batman or something.
Mm.
I actually really love that he appears to us as an adult because, sorry, excuse me. Some of it I think almost makes more sense as we continue in the story. So, with that sort of said, right, we eventually kind of see the end of this memory that Emmett Selk is sort of talking about, where, you know, a young Elidibus just kind of meanders away and is talking about like, wow, is Em has such a refreshing perspective and is such an interesting person. And Emmett Selk is kind of reflecting on Elidibus as Elidibus was before the Sundering, right? And talks about how, you know, Elidibus was somebody who was eager to fulfill his duty. He also respected and admired the convocation more than any other. And to many of us, he was as a younger brother of sorts. And this is where it gets real sad. When it became clear that he was the most suitable candidate for Zodiark's heart, it didn't matter how strong any other person's resolve was, because there were none except for him, likely because of his youthfulness, his idealism. None of them could not waver except for him. And that is, it's so interesting because I think it does make everything else make so much more sense. When he eventually separates out, which we kind of see, there's a bit of like a skip ahead sort of here, where they talk about when Zodiark re-separates out and Elidibus emerges again, right? And he appeared in the shape of a man in the moment of crisis, and looked over everybody. Everybody's like just sitting there like, what? And he says, fear not, you will make the right choice and I will see it through. So this is kind of like, we're kind of moving around here, likely from, you know, the turbulence and stuff that happened with Hydaelyn and further on, right? So he eventually reemerges, and then they continue this mission as Ascians after the Sundering as stuff goes on. But when he reemerges, I almost, and this was just my interpretation, so I'm curious to hear about everybody else, I imagine he appeared as a man because he knew that it's what would give everyone the most confidence. The idea that, you know, he wants to live up to their expectations. He has always wanted to stand amongst them. He went into being Zodiark's heart, the only one that had the youthful idealism and naivety and hope in a way that was really his strength, because he wasn't jaded by his age or experience or by the politics of the others, and became this pure heart, this pure idea, which we then see him struggle with in 5.3 as he's forgetting things, remembering things, but no, his mission. And the fact that he has almost made himself become their guiding rock because of the transformation that he has gone through and forced himself into this form that wasn't even his to begin with is awful and sad.
Yeah.
And it makes everything in 5.3 make so much sense and hit so much harder.
That's not what I got out of it, to be honest.
Really? No, go. Please give me your interpretation.
No, for me, he comes out as a man because this is the point where he starts losing himself. He is no longer that child that full of youth and optimism. He's not that person anymore. He isn't. Part of his, like as you said, the youthful thing is what made him so good to be the heart, and that's gone now. Everything, all of himself was poured into that heart, and maybe he comes back out of it, but he himself is gone. And from that point on, he's broken from what made him him. And I think that's personally where the point where he starts
it's the separation. He's
to lose himself. It's gone.
I can easily see both sides of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Open to interpretation.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, when you think about like how they set it up for his coming out of Zodiark, it's like, yeah, we were at our wits' end and we needed help. Did you summon a primal out of a primal?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Ooh.
did they get that idea and, you know, want it so much that they gave birth to the idea of the emissary
crazy.
again? You know, like, I don't know. You could take this so many different ways.
Yeah.
And
On top of that, I'm thinking about, I'm like, Anukulai. Anukulai? It's like,
I think so.
was he kind to him because he saw himself there?
Right.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, Zen, yes. I mean, yes, like
Yeah.
200%. And when we think
Wow.
about, like we talked about in 5.3, his choice of continuing the Warrior of Light's legacy
Oh, I could
and
totally
taking, like,
just
the
tear this a
shape
new one now.
Yeah, well,
of
like
the Warrior.
Anukulai, to continue that really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
They were kind of in the same position, except Anukulai was too late and failed. So even more on top of that, he's like, I feel sorry for you. We are basically brothers in the same issue, and I'm really sorry that this happened to you. I can do better. I'm gonna take care of you, bro.
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, it's so true though. And even when you look at their imagery, the white cloaked figure that's like a child,
Exactly.
and the white cloaked figure that is
They're
a
the
child.
same.
Yes, they are the same. They're almost identical, which is
I
very interesting to me.
I would wager, right? If we want to let's just go crazy. We'll finally use Unokalhai for something, right? What if, we've had Xeno split up mind and body. Why couldn't we do the same with Elidibus?
Interesting.
There you go.
The tinfoil hat is on. Zen has the hat
Yeah.
on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. And we obviously, coming out of 5.3, had a lot of guesses or thoughts about, like, well, what if eventually we end up bringing back the memories or use those stones in some way? Or, I mean, his spirit is supposedly contained within the Crystal Tower now. It's all very interesting. And Anukalai, I think, has some very striking resemblances, Zen, that I didn't even really think about in that context, but that you are very much right about, like 110%. And what I was thinking about with his sort of childishness is, like, with things with how he pictures the Warrior of Light, or the fact that he decides to embody a hero, also I think really speaks to his age and to, I think, some of those remnants of himself that are still in there, even if he doesn't realize it,
Yeah.
which is really fascinating.
My
I
heart.
know. It's actually it's really cool seeing how it all comes together here. And we then kind of transition in the story to basically what we're sort of discussing, which is that we are no longer in the land of the ancients in Amoratine. We are now, like, drifting in the abyss, the void, with Emmett Selk, who's just chillaxing a little bit between evil schemes, and who is talking about kind of the effect that this eternal life has had on them, which I also loved, because the Asians, I mean, we kind of see them as malicious figures for a very long time in the story, but what they have gone through to try and hold on to this memory, to hold on to this promise that they made to their people, is actually really moving in a lot of ways, which is also partially why I love Emmett Selk so much. But he's sort of drifting in the void, and he's stepped away from his disgusting meat shell of Solus, who he left back on the source. One should not remain perpetually in character is my favorite. I love it. And we get a sense of his dramatics, his theatrical
And
self.
that Selk
which,
is reminding our peers not to blend.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
He almost sees himself as an actor, which I love, and which will be relevant later
Yeah.
when we get to the end, which I'm going to nerd about hard. So he's just talking about, like, getting rid of this form, because he really feels like it's not even his real form, right? It's just a form of a form of a form that he's taken. And while he's in there, Elidibus appears beside him. And it's very similar to when he heard Elidibus call his name in the past, in the memories, except that now Elidibus is a very different person. And he's basically reporting that more of their number have died. La Habrea is gone. La Habrea has been killed. And so Emmett Selk kind of drags himself from sleep, and he's saying, like, oh, but he's not really gone. But yes, he is. And this is sort of where our legacy as the Warrior of Light starts to kick in, where we're finding these solutions to kind of entrap or destroy the Asians. And Emmett Selk, kind of responds to this, reacts to this, and sort of muses over it, and then muses over La Habrea and the creations and the legacy that they had left, with things like Ifrita, which we talked about earlier in it. And then realizes that Elidibus, who has come to him, just does not seem to know who he is totally. And there's a little paragraph there where they talk about, like, yet another part of him had been lost. Ever since the day he had reappeared to us as the embodiment of hope, time's tides had conspired to wash away what bits and pieces remained of the person he once was. So, like, we assume, and they discuss in there as well, that each of them has kind of processed this repetition and eternal life differently. That, like, some of them have hopped around. Is it La Habrea who's, like, hopped around between all the different shards, fragmenting himself over and over and over and over in this self-destructive cycle until this like last little bit of him kind of exists. That Emmett Selk has almost become like, he feels like he's play acting at everything, and we get like this sense, and sometimes he just leaves and he pieces and he goes to the void, but like this weight of eternity has registered for all of them differently, and yet they've been clinging to these crystals. And so he tries to get Elidibus to look at his crystal and remember those things, but Elidibus is like, I don't even need the memories, I'm just going to lose them again. So he refuses. And then they start talking about, I know, they start talking about the hero, and this hero that has appeared, and that, you know, Elidibus is going to start figuring out a way to deal with them. And, you know, Emmett Selk is just kind of like, I'm going to go to sleep again, but then Elidibus leaves, and he says, that was the last time that I ever saw him. And that's kind of the end. Before I go into the very last bit, does anybody have any thoughts on that section?
Yes. So in what, 5.3 was the latest patch?
Yeah.
My big argument, well, I guess not argument, my big peeve, I guess, was how much I felt was lacking as far as Elidibus presenting who he was. So I really enjoyed this story for that aspect, because it did fill in some of those blanks that I had there. I guess I'm sad that they were in a story, but I'm glad to have them at all. So.
Yeah, it's that weird mixed bag, right? Because, I mean, we talked about this a little bit when we did our review. It's getting into that patch, and all of a sudden Elidibus is just like, oh, like, I'm just now conveniently, like, forgetting things and acting weird. And, you know, it was like, all right, it feels a little rushed, but it helps a little bit when we have this backstory.
Yeah,
So,
there's a little bit of clarification, and it makes his change from Mr. Stoicism to I'm crazy, I can't remember myself guy seem more natural.
Yeah, it's interesting because I liked the sort of memory walk that Elidibus took us on in 5.3, but part of me can't help but wish that we hadn't had that solo instance, and instead, when we got a hold of our crystal, Emmett Selk had left something in there, or like we had our own memories that then took us back to Amarot, and we like
they should have given us new information there.
And we like got to see all of this in the game, and we got to see that Elidibus was young and was like, because that would have like all the yelling that I did during the primal fight where I was like, what's happening, what is this,
now I'm like really bummed that that's not what it was, and they just rehashed everything instead.
I really love that memory walk though. Like,
I liked it. Yeah.
Why not
only because at one point he says, that's when we lost control of you. Like, that is such a big deal. It's
right?
like one
to
sentence.
Know that exact point.
Yeah, like that they were controlling us. Like, I think Elidibus is the reason we are the Warrior of Light, and it's so important to know that they played themselves, because they were just running through it. They were like, Elidibus is speed running calamities.
I love this.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's so awesome. It's great.
It would have been really neat. Hearing you say that made me just immediately, sorry, I jumped in here.
It's fine.
But, it made me immediately go, how cool would it have been then if we had gotten, maybe we didn't have the fight at the end.
Yeah.
But we had gotten like that kind of deal with the solo instance, and then had a moment where we almost turned the tables.
Yeah.
And because we know that we can read Elidibus, and we know that we can trigger the echo, and that, you know, like we have seen glimpses of Amarot and all this stuff. How cool would it have been then to have the instance shift where you then show something to him, and it's like these memories, or like Emmett Selk has left memories for you or something.
Hey bro, remember grapes?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah. Did he ever bring Elidibus back some grapes from the volcano?
Had to.
Oh, I mean, 100%.
So.
There's like 50 pieces of fan art already or more that show this.
That is so good.
Yes.
Yes. This story, I think, out of all of them, probably for me, but everybody else can weigh in, is the one that I would be like, this is a must read. Like,
Yes.
This one,
although the next one, the last one is
Yes.
really solid in that aspect
yes.
as well.
That's
I
true.
mean,
that's true.
technically we are in this one, so
Yeah.
and our love of grapes.
Yeah, it gave me what I think I needed for Elidibus, and it made all of that imagery and everything else just make so much more sense. in a way that was so tangible that I wasn't expecting, but that I think just gives his character some really incredible stuff that, like, yeah, again, it would have been great to see a bit of this earlier on, or like even had him like show up in some weird places and make weird comments to us that would have been like his memories almost trying to like come back to these things and our relation to him. But regardless, I mean, I think there's a lot they obviously put into those moments that we didn't even realize until this story. So
Yeah.
that's really neat.
They just wanted to hit us in the feels multiple
Oh, yes.
times using the same
They
material,
could have.
so
They
they
could have
they
done
withheld
like.
us.
Like I'm imagining now, like we're just going through somewhere and we just see Elizabeth pop up and he just goes, "Thanks for the grapes," and then disappears.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. It's so good. I love it. I love it. Did anybody else have any other thoughts on that section before I do the little last bit here?
Do it up.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So, because I'm a big theater nerd, which I think we've talked about before
true.
here on this show, and I went to acting school, some people might not even know that the ending of this story is super cool. And I just want to be real
Oh, I
about
remember you mentioning this before. Yeah.
Yes, it's actually super, super, super neat. So I was actually in a production of Shakespeare's The Tempest where I played this character, but a gender-bent version, Prospera, whereas it's originally Prospero. But for anybody who doesn't know and thought this was just like a cool poem at the end, this is actually an adaptation of the soliloquy at the end of Shakespeare's The Tempest, which is a really neat play, and it was one of the last plays that he ever wrote. And it is oftentimes discussed as being his own farewell to the world. And this last monologue in particular is sort of considered to be his way of saying goodbye and taking his bow off of the stage before he passed. Which, when you know that, is like, oh, the chills are all over me. It's drafty in here. It's just so good. And it's a really cool soliloquy. So if you've never heard it, just a little heads up. And oftentimes it's done completely almost like separate from the production itself, where all the action wraps up and it's this big epic, and Prospero is a sorcerer who like uses these different spirits and entities. Ariel is like his companion, and he is taking care of his son in the story who, you know, falls in love with somebody, and like dealing with all these different things on the island and arranging it in this way because he's been in exile, where he brings about his happy ending, essentially. But then, after everybody has left the stage, only the actor that plays Prospero is left, and oftentimes delivers this with all the lights down behind him, just completely gone in the darkness or with a spot, and just strips everything down to address the audience directly, and essentially gives the speech that is his farewell to life, because we know that as a character he's going to die, kind of thing, right? So if anybody didn't know, that's where this comes from. And I feel like I don't have to read the whole thing. But if you haven't read it, it's super cool. And I think it just kind of hammers in that fact that he sees himself as this figure that, you know, has been almost playing this role for so long, but then kind of steps out of even the story itself to address all of us as players, to say, you know, I bid the falling curtain pause. Let encore be my final word. Their epilogue to death preferred, which is
Very good. Very good.
very good and
Very good.
very interesting, because at the
Yes.
end he subverts it and says almost like, I will not die, I would prefer an epilogue. So whether that just means that he left a little bit of himself in the stone for us, or it means that he's going to play some future role, I don't know, but I loved it and I yelled a little bit.
Yeah.
So either like I almost read it two ways. Like either he's like, you think I'm gone, but I'm not, and that could even be in what we saw in the final Warrior of Light fight, or that could be because he for a long time had that sort of inner struggle with whether or not he thought the Sundered people were worthy to continue the world, and it could be him being like, you know what, guys, it's yours, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
You know, there's a part of the passage that says, you know, others wait to take the stage, basically, and
Mhm.
their worth is far from sure. You know, like he's saying kind of why he went alongside us. He was like, okay, let's listen to this. It's not going to change my mind, but let's figure it out. At least that's what, because people are like, why did he do that? You know, like, what was his end goal? His end goal, he was still going to do it anyway, but he was like, are they good enough? No.
Yeah. Zen, you're right, because he even does say, like, though not by me, lest you miss, right? So,
Yeah.
like, he is acknowledging that, like, he will probably not be the one that brings the future about. And
Mhm.
yet, like, it is just all very interesting. I mean, whatever legacy he wants to leave or what role he'll play, and or those of us who, those words remember us, it's something that we kind of assume, like, oh, just carry our memory so that people know we lived at some point. But, like, there's a lot more that can entail, and the forming of a future world that's informed by the abilities of the ancients, or things that happened there, or struggles with Hydaelyn and Zodiark that can really only be understood by knowing and remembering what happened. It's very cool. It's very interesting.
I also really liked just throughout the story, seeing him actually like talk directly about SM, because we get a little bit of that in the MSQ itself. We kind of know how he feels about that character that we used to be, that person we used to be, what we used to be to him. Here we get a little bit more of it, and I just enjoy, like, we were obviously on his nerves, but I think everybody got on his nerves.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it?
But in like a friendly way. So
yeah,
we know now that when he's like yelling at us, remember, he's serious. He's like, I would love it if you would remember who you are and be that person again.
Yeah, and
For
we still don't
serious.
know why. Why did it even happen in the first place? Why did their world get destroyed? Right?
Yeah,
If we don't remember them, then we're just gonna get destroyed too. Like, maybe he doesn't want even the sundered souls of the people that he remembers
those
to be
freaking
gone,
grapes,
right?
man.
Yeah, it's
I'm
so
just
many
picturing like
Apocalypse grapes.
this Ocean's 11 scenario or something where like Azem pays off Hythlodaeus with some grapes and like he, like does some kind of weird turn and he like hands him like the vessel for the Ifrita or something and it's like this whole weird exchange with some like kind of slightly jazzy like music. And
I mean, it was in Amarant. It's got to be jazzy, right?
Oh yeah,
Gotta be.
nicely done. That's good. I didn't even think about that when I said it, but
it was perfect.
Well done.
Oh man,
We did it. One more.
that one is just
One more.
I know, Aldino's so good. Honestly, no joke, Al, you know when I got to that, because I know you also have had some Shakespearean experience. I got to that part while I was reading it, and I was like, oh man, Aldino, we're gonna have some thoughts on this. We're gonna have some thoughts.
I just it can't be said any better that it's it's that last word to the audience, and it is literally the last word to us, because we will never hear from him again. Probably, maybe,
as far as you
I'll
know.
be like this a couple times.
Yeah, as far
There's
as
a little
we
bit of a
know.
litibus in every single grape that we eat.
Yeah, it's
That's
the best
weird.
way to send off Emmett Selk, I think. So
Yeah.
And of course the Tempest and the
Yes,
area being the
it's
Tempest,
just-
and the whole thing that we've seen from the beginning. They're like, no, you were right. These are the same on purpose.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and Prospero is also a very divisive figure in his own way. Like, he is not just a noble, good person. I mean, he has a great deal of power, and there are a lot of gray areas, particularly with the way that he treats Caliban, who is like one of the native people that lives on the island. He is a man that it's actually really amazing, because I didn't even think about a lot of these parallels. He looks down on Caliban, and there's actually some pretty terrible scenes where he's just being very racist. Like, I'll be
absolutely.
like he's just being like, but in an interesting way that is similar to I mean, I think the way that Emmett Selk got a car going by. That's similar in a way to how Emmett Selk looks down upon the Sundered, and like the way that he puts these lines between humanity, or like what he perceives to be the life that I think he is fighting for, that also creates some interesting parallels with Prospero. And Prospero has to face a lot of that by the end of the whole play, which is kind of his journey, as he realizes that not everything is in his control, and that there are others who will choose to do things that he has to accept and learn to accept with grace, which is kind of interesting.
So awesome. And like that one, after that one I was like, I don't even care what the last one is, and then they kind of surprised us. Oh my goodness. So this next one is called An Unpromised Tomorrow. So it starts off and you're like, I don't know what this is about, right? because the picture's not first. So you look through it, and it starts off with a little passage from someone, right? And they're talking about like history and conquerors and whatever. And he's like, no, I'm not one of those. I'm not like a superhero. I'm not a savior of the oppressed. I'm just an engineer who is the 18th president of the Garland Iron Works. And you're like, what are you talking? What? So this is from
What do you
the
mean you're not one of
perspective.
those? Yes, you are.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's from the perspective of I believe it's Big's grandson, right?
Yep.
It's Big's. In the future, in the doomed future, from his perspective, talking about the project to get the Crystal Tower to the first. And it's so amazing. And, you know, in the end of this little beginning passage, he says, you know, in the end, no one will remember me anyway. They'll remember Sid, and we'll just be footnotes. But he's like, yeah, we're only too happy to preserve that legacy. So it gives you this, like, everyone had that hero worship, you know, because, I mean, the times were so bleak. But as they go through, it says, you know, it's reminiscing about the past of the Ironworks, but it says that now, in their future, before they send the Crystal Tower away, they were hunkered down in the Keeper of the Lake, actually, like, in the structure, which is falling apart still, because, I mean, they don't get to rebuild it. But this
Ain't
is...
nobody got time for that.
Yeah,
Trying to save the
exactly.
world.
Exactly. Could you imagine what the world would be like? Like, I wish they don't go really too far deep into it, but oh my goodness, like, I just want to see more about this. But anyway, as they're going through, this is set on the night before they transport it to the first. And you know, Biggs is like, well, I can't sleep, so I'll just, you know, sit out here staring into the fire. And he says, you know, he's talking to another insomniac, which is Graha. And he says, you know, why did you do it? Why did you stay behind in the Crystal Tower? Which I want to know the answer to that too. So as Graha is thinking, he's like, I would have slept for forever, right? That's, I mean, who cares? Like, that would have been the way that it was. But it was only as I got trapped in here that I realized what it meant to awaken to my purpose. And he talks about, like, back in the days during our timeline, at least that we experienced with the Crystal Tower, he dreamed of being like Sid, Nero, Biggs, and Wedge. Thank you for listing Biggs and Wedge. Thank you. And he says, and this is so cheeky, I would still give my right arm to achieve half of what they achieved.
I didn't even catch that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's like, hey, come on now. Bro. Bro.
Good job, Essie.
Uh-huh.
Or
So he
whoever wrote
kinda-
it.
Yeah, he kind of takes us through the Crystal Tower and tells us, you know, like, they were going through it, they found Doga and Une. You know, they got through the tower, and he played a pivotal role. And before him, like, as he saw the Warrior of Light, it's he calls us the very embodiment of heroism, right? The light of so shining an example. How could I do anything but stay in the tower? Like, you see what they're doing? I can't not do this. I have to. And it's that inspiration, because, you know, he admires us, and we get it, and they hammer on it, but they never really give the start of it, right?
Yeah.
This is the
That first spark.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
seeing us take it on, which is just so amazing, right? And Vix is like, yeah, it would be easy not. You could have just left, bruh. Like, you still didn't have to do it. And he's like, but weren't you scared? And this line, Graha says, of course I was scared, but courage is not the absence of fear, it's the triumph over it. Which is, you know, kind of a line that's used often, but I always love when they hit this this kind of theme. Yeah, everybody's afraid, man. It's what you do about it. So what do you think of it so far? Like, there's so much in this first, like, it's not even halfway through, I don't believe.
I wanted to ask you guys if you remember any specific place where this line is used elsewhere, because I feel like those words have been used in specific other places,
I'm not sure.
but
in
I
14.
can't think of one.
I don't think so in 14.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong.
I bet it had been somewhere, but I just know of the trope of, you know, like, courage.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
that particular, like, maybe not that exact wording, but that's used a fair amount, and I was like, it's got to be used somewhere else in 14, right?
Yeah, I don't remember it
so.
being used at another point. I mean, I'm sure there have been sentiments very similar to it,
Yeah.
right? Because we
Yeah.
get that a lot.
Or themes, or
Yeah.
yeah.
So as they're talking about this, you know, they're in like one little ramshackle area of the Keeper of the Lake that's falling apart. And, you know, they're staring up at the sky through the holes in the roof, which is just such a bleak future. But, you know, Biggs kind of thinks about it and he says, you know, Graha, Sid, my grandfather, all of these people who gave their all to see this plan happen, like, whatever, you know, like, whatever things that happened so far, it's like, we are finally about to do it. We're finally about to realize it. And Graha kind of interrupts him thinking about it, like, Biggs is the one who says, and we have to keep believing for a brighter future. And it's just this bro moment right before he sends him to probably his doom. Like, they're like, it probably will work. Probably.
But we very likely will never know.
Yeah, we'll
love
never
this.
know.
I love this too. I have to just interject for a second
go ahead.
because it didn't actually hit me until hearing you read it this time around that this is probably the last time Graha sees the night sky
Yes.
for
For a long ass time,
Mm.
yeah.
a long time.
Right.
And the sentiments that are shared here with him, this idea, like, so long as we are together, whatever foes stood against, whatever twist fate, like, it's gonna be good. And they're talking about it, and then we have to keep believing for a brighter future.
That
Like,
instilled in him hard.
Oh,
yes. It's all stuff that, like, we see him then speak himself and, like, almost pass on. And it's so funny that this whole thing starts with, like, nobody will ever remember us.
Yeah.
And then Graha, like, has taken all of this with him after he's made it. And, you know, in this world that is so without hope,
Yeah.
much like his own, he is using the words that were shared with him. And that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see him take that and give that to the first, because they were
Major
lost.
effed.
Yeah, like, without the Crystarium, I mean, you know, some civilizations are a little bit okay, but, like, without the Crystarium, that world is not the same. Like, that world is falling apart and would have completely, because, of course, Blightspawn would have taken it over. But it's just so cool to, see him be, even though he doesn't think he's one of the inspirations of the ages, like, he becomes it. It's
Neither
amazing.
of them do, but they're both
Right.
so important.
I mean, and that's what, you know, is always said. Only people who don't have enough knowledge think of themselves as the hero in the story, right? The people who actually know and have done it are like, no, I'm just another person. It's that humbleness, right? It's just so cool. And it just makes that moment where he joins the group just, oh my goodness. Why would they make it even worse? But
Here, hold my staff.
at
Love
the
that
end
so
of this first half of it, I think it's more than half, but anyway, they talk about the next morning, and they kind of watch the tower vanish. It just flash of light and it vanished. And I thought the story would be from Graha's point of view, and it's not.
Nope.
It stays with Biggs in that future. So after it disappeared, they just stood there. Everyone who helped do this just stand there. Deafening
Could you
silence, he said.
Imagine, like, that state of mind. It's like,
Whew.
so are we just gonna, like, poof out of existence now?
Right.
Or
Exactly.
what comes next?
Yeah, and
What do
and
we
they
do if we don't? Like, that's the big
Yeah.
question. Like, everything is so messed up. We had to send somebody back to change the past. But what if we just stay here in the
well,
present?
we
Yeah.
saved other timeline. We're still effed. Good
Yeah,
job,
and-
everybody.
and they start to think about it. Like, he says, one of the people standing there is like, will we be disappearing too? And Biggs is like, I don't know. He's like, I don't understand the ramifications of alternate
Not an
history.
expert on time travel. Sorry.
Right. He's like, you know, there they remained. And while that was something of a relief, they also start to suspect that maybe he didn't make it. Like, maybe nothing happened. Like, in that moment, the feelings that they must have felt, right? I
But
love them talking about
immediately-
them. Yeah.
Immediately he turns around. He's like, nah, not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Not possible.
He's like, no, we have to believe.
Yep.
Right?
I mathed correctly. The numbers were solid.
My only grandfather, which is weird, since it'd been like 200 years or something, but you know, lives, who knows. But
Long live Rogodin? Question mark.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. But as they're standing there, just going like, "Oh God, what?" The ground starts to shake,
And you're like, "Oh man, they're gonna nope."
Yep, everything's gonna be great.
Oh,
and,
we
they
messed
go,
up. Great. Good job, everybody.
They go over there, and they look at the keeper of the lake, and it's falling apart because Midgard Sormir breaks out of it, and it's like, wait, hold on, what?
It's like, did you guys just take my nightlight?
Right, like I'm really afraid of the dark, like, bro. So like, there's the deafening roar of Midgard Sormir. Everybody's just frozen. They're like, well, guess we die now. I don't know. Okay.
I thought things were bad, but now this ancient and unknowable dragon has woken up. So great. This seems fine.
The tower disappears. There's like that one asshole in the back. Well, I guess things can't get any worse.
Right?
Big 2020 mood right there.
Yeah, seriously. And Midgard Sormir, in this low rumbling voice, says, the tower, is this your doing, children of man? 1,000 apologies, I croaked. We didn't mean to wake you. It's like, could you imagine that moment?
What the heck do you say to a dragon if you don't know if he's mad or not?
We tried to make the tower disappear quietly. Sorry, we woke you from your nap.
It's like that old board game from the 90s, Don't Wake Daddy, but it's Midgard Sormir. He just pops up.
I have the jingle running in my head now from that. What the hell?
I'm sorry.
Don't wake dragon, daddy.
That can be taken. He is the father of a brood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literal. But
Yeah.
also
Children.
now, I had completely forgotten that jingle, and now it is just ingrained in my soul again.
Marketing
so
team
sorry.
for Don't Wake Daddy, you did your job.
Oh my gosh.
I love that next Biggs is like, you know, he was a friend to Sid. You know, maybe it'll be fine, but I might also just be incinerated. He's like, you know, maybe it's okay. We're bros. My grandfather was a bro with him, maybe. And Midgard Sormir says, long have I waited. Watch as the world was shaped by your hand. Through war and calamity, I've seen you struggle, devoting your fleeting lives to a dream you will never see. Right. And Biggs is like, oh boy, yeah, he's roasting us. He's like, you guys are dumb. Like, why did you even do that? And Midgard Sormir interrupts him and he says, such consistency in creatures so inconstant, not inconsistent, but inconstant, is impressive. Right? It was that kind of redeeming moment that Midgard Sormir is like, you know what? That's pretty cool, guys.
Y'all ain't half bad.
Dragons in the past, I'm not sure if it was Hraesvelgar or Midgard Sormir himself, that were just like, you know what? Like, we liked people for a while, but when we were hanging out with them for those couple of centuries, we realized how much you guys suck because of how short your lives are and how selfish you are because of that. And then he been watching people to see if anybody wasn't going to do that. And this group of people did exactly that.
Yeah. Against completely hopeless odds.
Yeah.
I mean, against...
They don't even know if this is going to help them.
Yeah.
They just know that some people somewhere need help. This might help us. This might not. We have to do this.
Yeah.
It could not even.
Every so often, Midgar's eye just kind of opens up, just looks down, and someone's like, "Is he looking at us?" He's like, "I'm just making sure you guys don't suck."
That's
just
it.
doing a real quick vibe check.
Yeah.
Carry on.
All right. So then Midgard Sormir, kind of looks at the crowd, and he catches view of an Omega replica, which I thought was hilarious. It's like,
well, we know, and this is what I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
Because we had one of the other tales, right?
Mhm.
That is about the Omega replica, which
Yes.
is quite literally a little replica that you can get from doing the Omega
Mhm.
raids.
Little doll
But
thing, yeah.
through this story, confirmed that it is Omega. Like,
Yeah.
Omega has been contained in it. And, like, Omega, for anybody who doesn't know, if you haven't done those raids or things, being Midgard Sormir's ancient foe that actually chased them from their home planet to this one, and then pursues them, and we confront and then defeat Omega, but Omega in the past story has been existing alongside Alpha and
Mhm.
has been wandering the world as this little children's toy,
Yep.
learning what humanity is. And I was just like, oh my God.
Right.
And what better teacher than this group of people, like, who have
Aw.
shown,
Mm-hmm.
like, their passion, their love, their hope for a future, who are, you know,
Meow.
technological geniuses in their own right, and who we know have already had an influence on him, but we can only theorize at this point in the future have actually given him a Grinch-like heart. They've
Yeah.
given him a heart finally, like the Whovilles, the Whovians.
Mhm. Yeah, it's Cindy
That's
Lou
so
Who
sweet.
that's holding the Omega
Oh,
replica,
shush.
right? It's a young girl.
And at that point, Midgard Stormer's heart grew. And then he
I do
decided, no, you guys still suck. And then he did burn them all.
Then burn them together.
Wow.
No, that's not how it ends. I do love that Midgard Stormer looks at the little replica though, and
Yeah.
then goes, "Lol."
Yeah,
Yeah.
he makes. He's like, gathering my wits, I began to realize. Oh wait, no, it's before that. It's the yeah. I knew nothing of dragons, but the sound he made was certain. I was almost certain it was a laugh. And then he kind of remembers Graha's words, like, "Courage is not the absence of fear; it's the triumph over it." And he says that's when he can finally return the gaze of Midgard Stormer. Like, who could look a dragon in the eye, really, right? But remembering that moment, he's like, you know what? It's exciting. It's not scary. It's exciting. Who knows what this means? And Midgard Stormer says, "Tell me, child of man, what dost thou see at Dream's End?" And
The Weaver.
oh yes, he
Sorry.
says, well, it says he
An
glimpsed
entire
a world.
toy line of Omegas.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I want one now, though. Kind of like a little wind-up one. Anyway. So he thinks about it, and he visions a world where the 8th Umbral Calamity had never come to pass. You know, we, Eorzea's champion, are there unbroken. You know, the realm is unbroken. We're doing everything. But just as suddenly, he realized that that was Graha's future and not theirs. He realized in that moment that, yeah, it's never, maybe in some other time that we have no access to, they're going to be great. But now we really need to do something. And he says, I see a world pulled back from the brink. This is where he gets that moment. You know what? I don't care. Maybe we save them. Hopefully we save them. But we got to do something here too. Here and now. And Midgard Stormer just starts to laugh. And he says, very well. Under my protection shalt thou and thine rebuild, gaining newfound knowledge and the wisdom to wield it. Thus shall the children of man usher in a new astral era. What? We even got a good end for the people who got the bad end? Like, what?
Yeah.
That's, like, as I was reading this, I was like, no way. No way. Midgard Stormer has the power to do something about this.
So with each expansion, right? We always have like the one town that rebuilds, right?
Yeah.
This expansion, we do Ishgard. We're actually, putting our, crafting and stuff. 6.0, crafting, gathering, endgame. We're actually going to just rebuild the future
Yeah.
source.
Go to an alternate reality, just chill for a little bit.
Yeah. Why not?
So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Midgard Stormer is as powerful as an Astian, right? If not more so.
Well, I would say far more so.
Yes. Okay.
Because-
So
Yeah, I would hope so.
So theoretically, this is just one of his many bodies that he could have woken up in. He has perhaps been hopping around looking at what Graha is actually
Yeah.
doing. He knows what's happened over there, and he's like, "All right, you guys put the effort in. You won. Good job. I'm gonna help you now." That's
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to say about that, but basically, Midgard Stormer is probably hopping around, looking at all the worlds, going, "Okay, what's going on here?"
Mhm.
All right, so he's aware of what's happening in all these places, theoretically.
Yeah, I would think so
Maybe.
too.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I just...
go ahead, Alvina. No, go.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I just wonder, like, I want to see more of this utopia. this.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Oh, it's so, because they don't have the Crystal Tower. They've got nothing. I'm sure things are broken down. Who knows how the city states are, but this would be such a cool future.
Mm.
Like
Zombie
just,
Dragon King helps
Yeah.
zombie world.
just
Well,
imagine if
Look,
people
all
just
I'm saying is if we can pull our heads out of our collaboration raid butts
yeah.
and do an original raid series in 14.
Yeah.
That'd be
Mhm.
so cool.
That would actually be really
man.
neat. If
Yeah.
you like got to appear in their timeline and like help them with something and like
Ugh.
see a glimpse of that future, that would be. I
Get
mean,
a small instance keeper of the lake like base of operations, and
I mean, we still
would
have
be cool.
Graha. We still have
Yeah.
Graha. We theoretically,
oh
perhaps
my
through
god,
him, or
could you
perhaps through the other
imagine
crystal tower, still have the ability
going
to
back.
use a crystal. Yeah. Just
Going back
someday
to
that
that
crystal tower
timeline?
pops back in there, and the people are like,
Yeah.
"What?
Wait, hold on.
Graha just
Wait.
like poofs back up the next day. What do you?
That's
did
Graha's music.
Oh no, it totally worked. I mean, technically that me died, but I'm here
yeah.
because reasons.
There's one of me.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a thing. I don't know if they ever will. This felt like
Yeah,
it was kind of a
hope
closure to that.
so.
Oh, I
It was
agree.
neat.
I can't imagine they
I mean,
need
yeah,
to
it'd be-
finish stuff up on
It'd
our
be
world.
wild. But when you think about it, it's not just Midgardstormer. Like, if Omega is there
Mm-hmm.
and Midgardstormer is able to communicate with Omega and realize exactly what Omega is, like, and if Omega has changed, I mean, the power that those two entities could wield is
Mhm.
mind blowing.
Mm.
Like,
Right.
it's
yeah.
something where like, and plus like the idea of that is really cool as well, because we have seen the dragons be in conflict with so many different sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are so long lived, their race is so unique and so powerful that there have been these like huge divisive issues, not only with Omega but also just with the inhabitants and the mortals of the realm. And this idea that like the darkest time somehow brings all of these entities together is kiss the ends of my fingers.
I
It's
mean,
just like
Okay.
to a
Chef's
point,
kiss.
but at the same time,
it's so
like
good.
if you're a big dragon and you have beef, like this big robot, and now he's like a Happy Meal toy, you're not
Yeah.
gonna really be threatened by that anymore.
You just eat them. Just
And I mean,
literally.
At the end, the
Yeah.
problem that Omega had with people was he was kind of like taken away, because he was like, you know what, this real light dude and or lady, this is pretty cool. Like I want to learn about humanity. Maybe you guys aren't so bad. Maybe dragons are okay. I'm sorry, bro. Like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hang out over here.
Midgardstormer's
Let's
like,
forget
hey,
about all that terrible crap I did. Sorry.
Yeah.
Midgardstormer comes down, hey, just making sure you guys don't suck. Omega's like, nah, dog, they good.
Yeah.
Trust
exactly.
me, I've been
Sorry about that giant.
at
hole I
this
put in
for a
my
while. They good.
Yeah.
It's neat. And like honestly, this paired with things like I really want to go back and do the twinning now, because
Mhm.
there are
Mhm.
little glimpses that we see in the twinning of like that alternate timeline that
Yeah.
are still in there. And I almost feel like we saw some of the ironworks in those glimpses, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's like now when I see them and I've read this story, I'm like, buddies.
Yeah. Exactly.
You
It's
did
it's so
good."
weird because I definitely agree. We're like going to the first and then therefore like that other bad reality, like I feel like that's like one and done, right? Like it's
Yeah.
we did it, we would go back, but then we have this storyline and it's really weird why they decided to go back and revisit it.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed the story. I thought it was really good, but it's very interesting for something that we thought was done. It definitely kind of like goes next
Reopens it
page
almost.
instead of closing a book.
Yeah.
And
I like
that's
it. I really
interesting
do.
to me. Yeah.
see-
Yeah.
At the end, Biggs even says, right, though we shall remain forever on different pages of history and different books beside.
This is Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah. Yes. Right. No, I was literally about to. Put
Oh,
the
I'm
tinfoil
sorry.
hat-
I'm sorry. I stole your thunder.
No, I'm just saying, like, put the tinfoil hat
Fusion's
on.
leaving.
Yeah. This is the 9th astral era, and that's 16. I mean,
Oh
I
my
don't think that
goodness.
it could ever happen, of course, but it's
Yeah.
just like, but it has that promise of that's an interesting world to play in,
Mm.
right? As you get the new warrior of light, you try and put it all back together again. That would be a fun story. Oh man.
Yes. I totally agree. And it does have this possibility. And I think even at its most simple form, right? And it's so interesting, like going back through these, I'm glad we've been able to talk about them because Elidibus, right?
Yeah.
Elidibus as the choice to end this expansion. Elidibus as the choice to be the thing that you confront in 5.3. Like, there have been a million question marks about this because it, you know, it did feel like there were all these big holes. They're not really that big, I'll be honest. Like, I think this story is communicated well. It's just that there were these question marks that still existed. Like, why?
Couple of frayed edges.
But
Yeah.
when we look at, you know, Era Curtain Falls and that line that says that what Elidibus was sacrificed to in Zodiark was hope. And when we look at the themes throughout this entire expansion being hope at its core, right? Hope amidst the darkness. This last story, like in its simplest form, is really like one of the big other things from the story of Shadowbringers that was very despairing, right? Like this terrible thing happened in this world and we don't know what happened to those other people. And we can only hope that the future got changed and they're, you know, everything's good, but also they made a huge sacrifice for this. And so to have this, like the final thing, the final moment of despair from Shadowbringers, I think then be given hope.
Yeah.
It just, I just love it. Like, we need that hope right now. And it touches me so much to see that, like, a lot of times we think that sadness is the only thing that carries emotional weight in a story. That, like, if it's sad, it means more poetically or art.
Yeah.
If people die, it means more. But sometimes hope means everything. And those things that are so important, those things that give us the drive to continue on can be just as powerful. And like, I think that's why Shadowbringers has been so timely and so wonderful and so incredible. And even in these stories, they're doing that, which is real commitment right there.
Right.
Well, like in the first one, I think the one with Omega, the first story that talks about this particular setting, they talk about how everybody's at each other's throats, and it's not until they start talking about the Warrior of Light and maybe being able to save that person that they have a goal. Like they don't know if this is going to do anything, but once the bunch of them have hope towards that goal, then they're able to reunite people who still have brains in their heads and aren't just murdering each other blindly, and start to rebuild the world. And again, that's what Midgardstormer sees. He knows that this wasn't even for them. Yeah, it may or may not help them, but ultimately it was because they were like, that guy was a point of hope. That guy is bringing everybody back together. Let's see if we can do something for them.
It's, I don't know. I would say that my favorite is Era Curtain Falls, but this one is definitely second. It's so good.
Yeah. And it's Midgardstormer. Like, he just kind of disappeared after the Omega stuff.
Exactly
and it's like,
right.
Where the hell has he been? Like,
He said he was sleeping. He straight up was like, dudes, that was a very tough fight that just happened. I gotta take a nap.
Right, and he slept for 200 years.
I would like to see more of Midgardstormer. I think he's such a staple for 14 specifically, especially when you are starting to get into like anything even remotely like space travel-y involved. Like,
well, the big thing that is still a big question for me always is the fact that ages ago, after Keeper of the Lake, the dungeon, Midgardstormer was like, you don't need those crystals, and took them. And said, like, you don't need this blessing anymore, and took it. And because of that, that has always, and especially with Shadowbringers, been something that really sharply in my mind indicates that Midgardstormer knows what happened. Like, his knowledge is,
he knows
what Hydaelyn is. He knows what all of this stuff is. So part of me feels like as we get closer to this conclusion with Hydaelyn Zodiark, although we have seen nothing that says, like, you know, in a trailer, like, Midgardstormer rears his head or anything.
Yeah, he should come back. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it would make logical sense for me to see him come back, you know, and help us with solving whatever this is, you know?
This is like futuristic backwards foreshadowing for something that may happen to us in our time.
Maybe Midgardstormer is how we go to the moon.
Oh my god.
Ride on a dragon, why not?
Oh my god.
And he gives us an air bubble.
Listen, we have a whale that does that,
okay? But the whale's not on the source.
We could summon one.
Yeah. We'll just have to get another. Well, we just
go down to
Nirvana
Amarat,
to
give Atheryte some grapes. Be like, hey, can you get us another construct from the
Yeah,
vault?
exactly.
Preferably the lunar whale.
Yes,
do
and
you have
don't
any
let
lunar
us
whales?
describe the lunar whale to you. Do not
Yeah,
let us
no.
describe it.
Mm-mm.
No,
Mm-mm.
it's gonna be a shark and it will kill us.
Oh my god.
But yeah, just stay tuned for
With
Midgar
legs.
Stormir in 16 because he doesn't like the mother crystals, right? So he's the driving force behind 16.
That's
You
it.
know, he
nailed
finds
it.
the main character and he's like, "You're right. Kill those crystals. I'll help you."
That's it. Actually,
Goodness.
our main character is a humanoid embodiment of
Oh
Midgard,
yes.
and
Mhm. He used to be a landscaper, and they called him the keeper of the rake. All right, I'll leave. I'm sorry.
oh my god.
I'm
Wow.
I'm alright. I'm
I-
okay with it.
leaving.
Are you sure you're okay though after what just
Okay.
happened?
It could be way worse.
It could be
Could
worse,
be,
yeah.
could be way worse.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I don't. I mean, look.
Well, I guess I won't be
what
here
do you
next
even
year-
say
next
after?
week.
All right, so that's gonna
Yeah.
do it for this episode of Aetheryte Radio.
Charles is like, and I'm fired. Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the end of this story, and the end of the stories from Shadowbringers. Like, wow.
Yeah, they were good. I loved this set of stories, honestly.
Yeah.
I think the last four felt a little bit more like like straight up
Mhm.
focused, connected. The first four, oh, there's the one that has, I mean, it is Estinian. I mean, yes, we know that he's probably going to be playing a role in some stuff
Yeah.
coming up, but like a few of them felt a little bit more like funsy, whereas these
Mhm.
last four very much felt like this is important supplementary material for the
Right.
expansion. Shadowbringers.
Here's the
Mhm.
stuff we couldn't get into the
I
game.
really liked the story with Thancred though. I thought it gave
Yeah.
a lot to the MSQ and that whole situation with the Minfilia, and
It's
just
true.
him as a character, like making the choice to not have a life but to devote himself to basically protecting this person. First of all, whose life he screwed up, and second of all, who needs to basically be alive to make the world better.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that long ago where he was naked and had a squirrel.
Yep.
Same
Listen,
character.
You can be a badass
That is
protector and
that
still
is
also be
character
naked with the
development right there.
It is. Though. It really is, because I would have said back in 2.0, Thancred's just a himbo that wanders around, and that's cool, whatever. Like, I don't care about Thancred.
It's not
People
inaccurate.
always
Yeah.
people always say that about Thancred, and yes, it is true, but I still like him.
But he grew, too. Like, he changed, and he
Yeah.
he learned that, yeah, you know what? I am someone who has these skills that should use them for the good of everyone. Like, that is my role.
Yeah.
That's the
I mean, you can be a himbo and still be likable.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he had a journey to take. And it is funny because I think out of all of the characters, I feel like his journey was, well, maybe Urianger too.
Mm.
They felt a little bit ambiguous, right?
Right.
Like, it felt like they weren't totally sure what to do. Like, early on, it's like, I'm a playboy and a himbo, but also a rogue, and I'm
Yeah.
charming, and I love Minfilia. And then it was like, I was teleported butt naked,
Yeah.
middle of nowhere. And now I know how to survive in the wild.
Yeah.
It's like, and then it was like, I'm a gunbreaker now, and I like.
Yeah.
It feels like he's
Look,
kind of been all
I would
over
watch that show. I would watch like
I would totally watch it.
the Thancred swapped out with like Bear Grylls like survivalist
Yeah.
show,
Yes.
That would be amazing.
I
and
need a
he ends
Netflix
up just getting a
interactive
rope to
Bear
hang the squirrel from.
It's all very good and it would be delightful,
Mm.
but it felt like they weren't always sure exactly what they wanted to do with his
Mhm.
character arc. I mean, plus the fact that I guess he was possessed by an Asian for a while. Like,
Yeah.
there's so
Well,
much stuff that happened to this
And I
boy.
think part of that driving force too was just the
The hot
trust
cred.
system. The
Mhm.
trust system. They're like, okay, we here and have a trust system. They need to have jobs. We need to
Yeah.
kind of put them in a certain type now. So
Yeah.
But I mean, like, his relationship with Reen and that, like, the way they decided eventually to develop that, relationship with Minfilia, I think really did give him something solid. And then paired with things like a role that also kind of made him a protector, like, I think we got to see him take on responsibility for something greater than just himself, whereas before he was really very much kind of in it for himself and his own interests, even in
Such a
regards to
Brandon.
Minfilia.
it was
Yeah.
that job change. He went from the rogue to the tank.
Yeah, and he just got a lot more responsibility, and he started to have to act like a dad. You know, just the way it goes when you switch to tank, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. You and your co-healer, co-dad fall
Yeah.
in love with one another, and it's like a
Mhm.
whole thing. And
It's funny because
Raised 2 teenage girls for about 3 months.
Mhm.
Abandoned them.
then
I
just
was,
leave them.
I've been doing I've been leveling Red Mage very slowly by doing all of the hunts and all of the fates for research about the first. And I realized, I was like, oh, Meringue, why do I have a quest there? I had never done the end of the Eden quests, the one where they say
Oh.
goodbye. And I did
Yeah.
that after 5.3 was over, and I was like, this is weird. I should not have done this then. I should
I
have done
actually
this
did the
earlier.
same thing.
Oh,
I
did
actually
you?
did the exact same thing.
Oh,
I was like,
that's
guys, is
funny.
this a new quest? The one that
Yeah.
like gives you the 8 music that I was
Yeah, I
wondering
thought
where the
that
heck
too.
was?
Well, I
Nope,
did that one
just,
a while ago, but
Yeah.
just missed it. Oops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Whoopsie.
easy to miss those things sometimes,
Yeah.
though, honestly.
Yeah.
Which it's a little rough then, because you
Yeah.
do feel like even more so in 5.3 then that farewell is kind of ripped off.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like doing the which was it, the culinarian's quest or whatever.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like with Nanamo as like a taste
Yeah.
tester or something.
Oh.
But if you do it like after the end of 2.x, you're like, oh.
She got
Okay.
better.
She's okay.
Remember Star Wars? It's like
Also-
Padme's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
would
it's
you
one of
have
the-
a Sultana be a taste tester? Doesn't she need a taste tester so that what
Right.
happened to her doesn't happen to her?
Right.
Lots of questions off of that one.
I mean, you make some good points. Moving on.
Yeah,
But
no,
yes, the
second
first
one was good.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first 4 were Thancred. You said his name and it's gone from my brain.
Justinian.
Estinian. That's it. What is Emmett Selk, the one he had, and Omega.
Omega. Which,
Yep.
you know, when you think about it, actually does have a nice evolution into the like next tier of stories. I think probably the Estinian one feels the most just kind of like lackadaisical fun times.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll take it. And it is cute, and I will always listen to more cute dragons. You know what I mean?
I mean, they've been treating Acidian porous for a little while. I mean, we got the little roleplay instance, but other than that, like, I was watching somebody stream End of Stormblood again, and it's like, Acidian rescued you. Here's like one picture showing his feet that proves it. And
man.
it's like, wow, thanks, that's cool
I actually
looking.
I forgot to mention, right after I think I read the Sito story, I have a tertiary alt that I finally got up to Shadowbringers. So like within hours, I actually got to the part where you go see Sito the first time, and I was like, my tears are back. No.
I thought they were all gone.
There's more, it turns out.
I feel so dehydrated. How is there anything left?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe some of this has to do with Estinian. I mean, if we're looking at all the stories as being something, it could have just been a lighthearted one that they threw in there. But like the fact that he has been forming relationships with the dragons is interesting.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, we even saw Midgard Stormer kind of peeking up in that last story. Like, there are some things there that, I mean, like we said, I think there's possibilities that they could use to continue developing those stories. And because we know Estinian has been involved in the efforts against Garlemald, I mean, I have no doubt we'll see him in a next expansion.
I think to end everything, I mean, because when Estinian shows up, he's always just like such a badass, right? He just like does his thing and then he leaves. So I think what we'll get for when we do Zodiac will be like, okay, he's on the moon. How are we gonna get there? And Estinian just shows up surfing on Midgard somewhere. He's like, yo, I'll be right back. And just up to the moon, kills Zardia, comes back. He's like, I'll see you again next expansion.
Yeah, that's
Done.
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think
that's totally in line with his character too. He would just be like, yeah, I'll be right back.
God.
I mean, I will never forgive anybody. I think the biggest what are you doing moment that I've ever had in Final Fantasy XIV, because normally the narratives are pretty tight. The one that got me was we're just gonna throw the Nidhogg's eyes into the chasm. I was like, are you idiots? Are you?
No one will ever find them.
I know that's how you usually deal with things you don't want, witch drop, but come on.
Yeah.
But I mean, minus that, they're very good. And I mean, even that they used for a reason, but I still think that it was a little contrived. Like,
prior to that, I was like, Astinia, why are you still covered in blood, brah?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Also,
please wash up.
He's like,
But then it was a story
hard
element.
it is to wash this armor.
Yeah.
First, I have to
hose him
take it
down.
off. Taking
Hose
the
him
armor
down.
off takes like 3 hours.
Somebody
Yeah.
get that.
Also, it's
stinking
really
guardian
sharp,
out of
so I
that
have to
armor
wear
and
special
wash it.
gloves when I clean
Yeah.
it, so I don't cut myself on my own
Just-
armor.
Just roll around in the snow. Like it'll do something. It'll be a little
Anything.
better.
There's
You know,
enough
it's
blood
not a
on
bad
you
idea.
that not only are you covered, it's still red. It hasn't dried and turned brown. You are still wet with blood.
Yeah.
I'm just envisioning somebody prying Estinian from the table salt, which he is just consuming eagerly and being like,
Yep.
"Take your armor off, so help me, just do it and get clean."
After
There's a ton
after
of
after
armor
after the fight, Emmeric's like, "Hey, Astidian, can you come over to my manor? I'd like to talk to you, catch up on things, get debrief you." And it's just like bloody footprints is dripping all over, and Emmeric's just like, ugh. And like Emmeric's like butler cleaner guy's just like, I hate my job.
I thought you were gonna have him like
Emmeric's like,
catch him with
please,
like a
Astidian,
barrel of
have a
water.
seat. And
Yeah.
the cleaner's just like, oh no, don't have him sit.
Yeah, don't do that.
Some things happened with Estinian, but yes, I think he's definitely somebody we're gonna see more of. I mean, they've
Oh,
never
yes.
let us forget
Oh,
him.
yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
Can you
I'm
imagine
curious.
inviting Estinian in to sit covered in blood? Not only does he get blood all over your couch, he like pokes giant ass holes through
Mhm.
it.
I've always said that inviting a dragoon to a kid's birthday party would be the absolute worst thing that you could do.
Unless
Just
you
all the
wanted to get
balloons
rid of
are
those
gone.
kids.
All the balloons are
Yeah.
gone and just pop every balloon he walks by.
Yep. I
Ever
just want
since
an
that
odd
1.0
couple.
AF came out.
Say what, Charles?
I said I just want an odd couple spoof with Estinian and Amaric. Like
Yeah.
that old what is
or
that?
or
80s
Astidian and
sitcom?
Gaius.
Yes,
Astidian and Gaius.
yes.
Or
I mean-
Perfect Strangers. That's what it was. Perfect
There you go.
Strangers.
I mean, Odd Couple was a fair
Yeah.
relation as well.
I'd watch
Yeah,
I'd watch it.
I do. They're both so good. But I
Mhm.
mean, I do think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm curious to just ask this now, as we wrap things up, I guess, or head towards that a little bit so we finish all the stories. There are so many threads. I've been thinking a lot about this recently. Back on the source that I think we could still have as something that would be really epic as like Shadowbringers, we're coming off of Shadowbringers. How do we make it as cool as that? But even just like wandering around the Shroud recently, the elementals, like there's all these interesting forces in the world that I do think we still have a lot of big moments we could get out of, were they to do that.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm curious to ask, I mean, we know like Estinian, we know there's these different threads, Midgard Stormer we were talking about earlier, but like what are things back on the source that maybe you are hoping we get to see used in the next expansion or moving forward?
A big sword to kill Xenos and just get rid of them forever.
Yes.
Oh, I like that one. That one's good.
I would like that before the expansion. It's hard because I want to see Garlemald, but we've also been getting little bits and pieces of Garlemald, and so it's really, I don't know if we're actually going to end up going there. New World has been hinted at with Blue Mage and stuff. Like, well, even before then, like we know like the Mumble Jar from the New World. It's gonna be one of the two, and then maybe depending on where we go, they'll throw in like Charlayan or Thavnir as like a little secondary thing.
Floating city of Nim.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be a really cool setting.
really awesome. I want to see Mericidia.
Yeah,
It's just-
Mericidia. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so storied in the history that I want
Yep.
to see it and want to see
Dragons,
who's left there.
cat
yeah.
people.
Yeah, like who's left there? Who's living there?
I mean,
what are they
if
like?
if we go the route of Astidian rides Midgard Stormer to the moon, that's a nice segue into Mericidia.
It's true.
Mericidia
Very
would be amazing, and yes, like I want it very much because the dragons are always a thing that I'm like, this is an endless wellspring of just coolness that we could use in any story.
Mhm.
I guess the first brood in
Yeah, the
Mericidia,
first brood.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be something for me that I was like, holy cow, this is a huge moment. Like
Yeah.
this feels super, super intense.
Yeah, like, Midgard Stormare waking up in one future kind of awakens him everywhere. Maybe he's omnipresent, and that's why he starts to do things again. And we go to Mericidia or something. Who knows?
Final
Yeah.
Fantasy
What
is
14
the dragon
brood
in-
blood
in-
brood word
Broodword.
brood
Wow, I always
bringers.
forget her name.
The dragon that's imprisoned, is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Tiamat.
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 Tiamat, yeah.
I don't want her to be sad forever.
Right. We gotta go
Yeah.
save her. Like, come on, man. We have the
That-
technology.
That really is the most depressing. You're like, we can
Right.
help you. And she's like, well, I've been mourning my mate for 1 trillion years and will continue to do so. And I'm like, you don't have to though, girl. You can have
Yeah.
your own life. You can live again. You can help everybody.
If we ever
I hear
figure out...
Nidhogg's reformed. Wink. Or is that your son? In which case, never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. There's this hot new dragon.
Hot new dragon on the block.
Yeah.
It's
Check
hot
him out.
and dragon out there.
Oh man, Estonia needs someone, right?
Whoa.
He's kind of part dragon, probably by now.
Whoa.
Aldina,
We already know.
You are opening up a can of worms that
I know. It
That
should not have
look,
done.
I'm not wholly
Yeah.
opposed to, but I'm just saying it's gonna get real spicy
It's
really
dangerous.
fast. What
Yeah,
you've
it's
just
Precedent. The precedent is a dangerous.
It's true.
dangerous one right there.
Anyway,
I can't think. I'm sure there's a billion other things.
The roar at the end of ARR, was it Bahamut? I don't think it was, right? Was that the world-destroying Amarot thing? Like, what?
I don't
That would be
know.
cool. Or if
I
there's
thought it
even
was
we
Bahamut.
know that there are
I
remnants.
think it
of,
was Bahamut, but I don't know.
Yeah, we know that there are remnants of Amarat on the first.
Yeah.
But I mean, do we think there's any possibility that we see more of that ancient civilization somewhere on the source? That'd be pretty interesting.
It's weird, right? Because we're done with the Unsundered, but also we still have Ascians, but they don't really care about much. So
Yeah,
as much as I would love to see more, I feel like we're done.
right.
Well, but I mean, no, we're not, because Fandaniel.
That's true.
Fanny
That's
Yeah,
true.
but he's not gonna be like, oh, hey, check out Amarat on the source. He's just like, I'm just gonna be
Well-
crazy and
well,
weird.
We might just need to
might
go
not.
there
Yeah, what I mean
to
is
figure
that
him out.
we
Mm.
might know, because if we're talking about what do we do about Hydaelyn and Zodiark as the crux, right? Like, do we leave them existing as primals? Can we dissipate their energy without? I mean, how do you even do that? They're so ancient. Like,
Yeah.
what do we do with these entities, and what is their role in the world? Do they just continue to exist and somehow keep things in balance by their opposing forces? I mean, it's very interesting there, and I'm curious about how they're going to deal with that.
I
because
hadn't
I mean,
even considered that, and now I want 6.0 to be like Atlantis, like risen up from the depths, and I just want like full on Amarat like expansion.
I mean, we need to.
Why do
There's
you-
a lot
why
of
do you
stuff
say these
we can
things?
discover.
Yeah,
They may or may not do that though, right? Because I mean, they already, I think, gave us more than I thought they would with this, like, you were ancient and here's the stuff. Like, I never thought they would really truly come out and say we were Azem. And I was hoping for it with all my heart, but I didn't think it was actually going to be a thing. So they could surprise us and do more of that, where we do have to look to the past to figure out all this. But
So many problems will be solved by grapes.
Yep, absolutely. And
I
you know,
don't like grapes.
yeah, I know.
I don't like
I
raisins.
know you don't.
Well,
don't
well,
like
you
grapes.
used to. You used to.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
do you like wine?
I do
Zed?
like wine. That was the next time I was saying I do like
Yeah.
wine.
There you
Well,
go.
So
there
you
you go.
like grapes.
That's why you were
Uh,
saving the grapes back in those days.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
were using them for wine.
The grapes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Elizabeth's like, so did you bring back the grapes? Oh, sorry, I forgot
him a
the
bottle.
grapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not underage, right? I know you're short, but we're eternal.
But enough, that
remember?
same bottle will need to be recovered in 10,000 years for a fetch quest.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
When
That's
does wine
right.
go bad?
All right. Anything else that we want to add here for
No.
these short? I mean,
I
that
don't
pretty
think
much,
so.
I
Those
think,
were
sums
good.
everything up.
Mhm.
So there you go. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Aetheryte Radio. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. If you want, you can catch us on email here. You can email us aetheryteradio@gamerscape.com. You can tweet at us at aetheryteradio. If you want, you can hit us up on Discord, discord.gg/gamerscape. There's an Aetheryte Radio channel on there if you want to talk to us about the show or any discussions we had on the show. Also, we are on Twitter and Facebook as Gamerscape. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.